Good morning, InfoWars. Welcome to the American Journal. I'm excited that everyone is here to join us. We've got a packed program for you today. A lot happening yesterday afternoon, and we've been covering it throughout yesterday and into today. I've got tons of updates for you in regards to all of the deep state hacks who decided to go about trying to overthrow our democracy, try to go after President Trump. Well, there's an update because there's a list of individuals who are reportedly about to be indicted, and it's all of the people who deserve it. So we're going to go through that in a few moments. We're going to have a couple of incredible people joining us today. Douglas Mackey joining the show because he's celebrating his big First Amendment victory. We're very, very excited about that. But, Mackey was indicted, convicted for the crime of sharing an offensive Hillary Clinton meme. So he's joining us today to speak out because he has been vindicated and everything is finally done, which is incredible. Graham Allen is also going to be joining the show too. He's got a lot to talk about, as many of you know, probably. He was over at the DOD for a little bit. Then he came back to the podcasting world, and he's doing an incredible job over at Dear America, but he's joining us today to react to the fake news about the DOD, or I should say the Department of War. I keep doing that. They're the Department of War these days. And they're also going to be talking about he's going to be talking about with us a couple of things like the James Comey being potentially indicted, others as well. So we're excited to have him on the program today. Mike Howe also joining the show as well from the Oversight Project. He's got so much that he's been working on with the Oversight Project. They do incredible work at pushing back against the machine in D.C. So we've got a lot to cover with him, as well as Aaron Wright's going to be joining us in studio today. He is running for the state attorney general in the beautiful state of Texas. And he gets it. He gets what's going on right now throughout our country. He is probably one of the closest things to Ken Paxton when it comes to having an AG that would be willing to fight back. And so that's why I'm excited to have him on the program today. So he'll be joining us later on in the show. But again, lots going on. Yesterday when we came to air, we had to go through what was happening in Dallas. As many of you guys know, outside of an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas yesterday, there was a shooting. A sniper shot and killed multiple individuals. We're talking at least 2 are dead. 3 total were actually shot. So 2 of those were dead. 1 still injured. We don't know the condition yet of that individual. And there's just so much going on right now in regards to this because Democrats are refusing to push back and stop with the nonsense. Democrats, instead of, allowing other Democrats to go out there and to spew hate, they don't push back against that. Instead, they'd rather just comply and allow their friends to do whatever they want. And it's so sickening because, again, they continue to use these words to intentionally put ICE agents at risk. And it's not surprising. We actually have a reel of clips of all of them that we're going to air today. And they don't want to take any blame. They don't want to push back against their own. They don't want to take any blame. Although there are many of them who know it's wrong what's going on within their own party, they won't speak up. They won't speak out. They won't push back on these issues. And it's not surprising. So we're going to go through, because we've got quite the reel that they've put together. It's very, very impressive. But we've got all the evidence that they have been the ones igniting all of this. And I feel like every day in this country right now, we're covering a shooting caused by a radical left-wing hack. Someone who is mentally disturbed. I feel like we cover that all the time in this show now. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. But those in the mainstream media will lie to you and tell you that, no, it goes both ways. I don't think it does. Every now and then you might get a right-winger who goes crazy. We had Joe Hanneman on the show, and he detailed the one who killed the Minnesota lawmaker that he claims to be a Trump supporter. But again, most of this is radical left-wing individuals, terrorists. Might as well say it at this point. So we're going to be covering all of that today. A lot going on in the world. Other stories you probably didn't know about, we're diving in. So you're not going to want to go anywhere. We're going to kick things off in the first hour of the American Journal in just a few moments. Stay with us. Morell. We're excited to have you all here today. A lot going on in the world. We actually just got breaking news into our newsroom. You see, YouTube is claiming to be reinstating accounts and bringing certain accounts back because they got it wrong in the censorship war, of course. That's what they're telling people these days. But right now, if you go onto YouTube and you try to look for our YouTube page, which was made yesterday, it's the Alex Jones live page. Well, it's been removed, it looks like. Wiped out, according to our control room. Wonder why that happened. Wonder who gave them the call. Folks, YouTube, Google is pretending like it's bringing back accounts, but we are proof they are not bringing back accounts. It looks like they have just taken down Alex Jones live. That's not what they promised us. I've reached out, of course, to all of the people who are telling us that YouTube is back. YouTube is not censoring. YouTube is going to allow those with COVID bans to be brought back in. I'll let you know when I hear back. Because, folks, those accounts that were nuked at the beginning of the pandemic for speaking the truth, they need their monetization back. They need their lost wages back. I mean, we're talking thousands, millions of dollars people lost out on. I mean, my first week on YouTube, I posted a video of me and Naomi Wolf, Dr. Naomi Wolf, talking about a FOIA request. So we're going through a government document. Immediate strike. So the censorship war is still on, it looks like. And they're trying to stop InfoWars. They're trying to stop Alex Jones. Obviously now Alex Jones Live appears to be offline now, like we're banned again. We'll keep you updated, though, as we learn more. We'll reach out to comment on this because, again, YouTube, Google's out here telling all these politicians, like Chairman Jim Jordan, that they're done with the censorship, that they got it wrong. Well, it looks like the censorship is still on. So we'll keep you updated on that when we do hear more. But I want to give you an update because yesterday when we came to air, we had breaking news in Dallas. We were told that there was a sniper who was shooting at a vehicle. We've learned more, obviously. 2 detainees, illegal aliens, have been killed. 1 still injured, it appears to be. Obviously, that's 3 people total shot. But we know motive now. And it's thanks to this disturbing, disgusting, despicable human being who decided to write on those bullets. Again, this is becoming a new theme here with these left-wing terrorists. And we're learning more about the shooter. So the shooter obviously took his own life yesterday. Kristi Noem confirming that over at DHS. But this individual is obviously someone who's very sick in the head. His brother saying that he had no idea that he felt this way about ICE. That's strange. His brother saying that he was a registered independent in 2024, but he did vote for Democrats. That's according to the Daily Mail. And we're also learning that he was unemployed, but previously worked as a coder. Interesting enough, his mom also far leftist, anti-gun, apparently raising 2 individuals who have criminal records, according to several reports. Again, he was unemployed at the time. He was expected to move back in with his parents in Oklahoma. That's according to the shooter's brother. This mugshot you're looking at is from his arrest back in 2015, it looks like, when he was arrested for felony charges for delivering marijuana in a greater amount, more than 1/4 of an ounce. So it's so crazy when you sit back and you look at all these facts coming to the surface, and you're wondering, well, how does one get to this point? Obviously, we were sitting here yesterday wondering, why would anyone shoot into a unmarked vehicle and kill illegal aliens? And the corporate media thought, oh, this must be a far-righter. Even after seeing what you just saw, even after seeing the bullets with anti-ICE rhetoric, they were still yesterday trying to pin this on anything but their fellow terrorists. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible how stupid these individuals are. I want to play a clip for you, clip 1, where this guest on MSNBC decided to just come out and say, we don't really know what to believe here, even after seeing the shells. Take a listen.
You can't just assume by that, what was written on that shell casing, that that's necessarily his motivation. He could have been doing that to thinking it was funny, trying to put law enforcement on the wrong track. This is where when you analyze the person's phone, computer, talk to his family and friends, that you get an idea of what his motivation perhaps really was.
Yes, don't look at the facts that are coming out from officials. Don't look at those. Instead, try not to think for yourself. Instead of putting two and two together, right? The anti-ICE rhetoric, the shell casings, just forget about all of that. You see, that's what the corporate media continuously does. They don't want you to link it to their fellow terrorists. They want you to sit here and pretend to be open-minded, as if you're a moron. The hope here is you're as stupid as they are. They don't want you talking about the simple fact that this individual is obviously one of their fellow terrorists. I'm going to start calling them all terrorists at this point because that's exactly what they are. They want us to live in fear. They don't want us to go out in public. Just from a guess, I'm guessing the shooter thought he was opening fire into a vehicle with agents. Because to kill detainees is just foolish. Again, even going after ICE agents, that's absolutely ridiculous in the first place, but they're not level-headed individuals. So for them, for this cause, he's going to want to go out there and kill ICE agents. Now, obviously, both is absolutely egregious, but it's not surprising. This is what they do. They do this consistently. We're seeing these reports come out probably at least once a week now. At least once a week, we're learning more and more and more about how these left-wing terrorists are trying to destroy this country. But this is the problem here, right? Because he's getting all this attention. All the eyes right now are on his cause. And so we're going to see more of this. Because obviously they're not well in the head. But that's not an excuse for what they're doing. Now, I reached out to DHS to find out more about the victims and all of this, and I have not yet heard back. I just want to know, who were these people who were shot and killed? What were they being detained for? Obviously, they're illegal, but usually there's some criminal charges involved in this, because about 70% of those who are detained by ICE, those illegal aliens obtained by ICE, they are individuals with criminal backgrounds. Again, DHS not getting back to me on that. They did forward me photos you're seeing all over social media now, but we're going to find out who those people were. Because again, I mean, odds are this individual is just an absolute moron. Somebody who was suicidal, who just wanted to go out and get attention. And so he thought this was going to be the noble cause to do so. But this is a growing trend here. Why? Because everyone's getting attention from it. His message, his political views are now getting a platform. And one would think, after seeing all of the bloodshed over these last few weeks, that the left would start calming things down a little bit, that Democrats would realize that they are the problem. Their rhetoric is the problem. And they would try to settle down a little bit, but they're not doing that. They're not doing that. In fact, they are intentionally going after ICE agents. They're criticizing them for wanting to wear face masks, face coverings, because obviously, again, their left-wing terrorists are the ones who are going after them. Their left-wing terrorists are the ones who are going out there doxing them, going after their family members. The goal here is to stop anyone from becoming an ICE agent, from doing their jobs. And the Democrats just sit here and go, none of it's our fault. None of it's our fault. But folks, there was a great reel put together by Western Lensman on X. And he put together all of these clips so you guys can understand exactly what rhetoric we're referring to in clip 2.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified. This is not the 1930s.
Secret police who are masked, who are intimidating, who are scaring people. These Gestapo-like tactics.
This is Gestapo-like behavior.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets.
When you compare the old films of the Gestapo grabbing people off the streets of Poland, it does look like a Gestapo operation.
You posted on social media that, quote, ICE is acting like a terrorist force.
ICE agents, they are coming and kidnapping and disappearing people on the streets of the United States.
But this terror campaign of having masked people rolling up in vans. But we also have to talk about the agents themselves that are carrying this out. If you have any decency, quit now. Because just doing what you were told has been the justification for some of the worst horrors and crimes against humanity.
Masked agents of the state in unmarked vehicles are terrorizing communities. They are disappearing people.
One has to assume they're hiding something, or they're hiding misbehavior, because otherwise, why would they be wearing masks and denying their identities?
If everything is legitimate and proper, why are you wearing masks to hide your face?
Not look like America. We are going to require them to show their faces. If you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to hide.
Did you hear? That is insane, folks. This is what they're doing. You see, they're trying to reach out to those who are mentally unstable, mentally unwell, individuals who think that's a noble cause I'll take up. And they're the ones who are going out there and shooting at Americans, shooting at illegal aliens sitting in vans. Again, I don't even think he realized they were illegals that he was shooting into. But this is what's going on right now in our country. You see, Democrats are intentionally going after those who are mentally disturbed in their own party, and they are trying to give them the fuel that they need to carry out these type of attacks. While sitting there looking you straight in the face and pretending like we weren't the ones who did that. I mean, how many times you're going to be told that there's an agency going out there kidnapping people off the streets with masks on? And you think there aren't going to be people out there who are going to do something about it? Democrats have an abundance of mentally ill individuals a part of their party. Of course they're going to go after these people. And by the way, that ICE facility has been under attack multiple times in Dallas. Multiple times. We're hearing that DH is going to start boosting and increasing its security around that facility and others. But the reality of it is, folks, time and time again, this is what's going on, and nobody on the left wants to take responsibility. They know what they're doing. This isn't ignorance. You heard Eric Swalwell. Why are they covering their face if they're not doing anything? They're covering their faces because you guys are the terrorists, because you guys are going to go after them, because you're going to run their biometrics, go after these people, and destroy their lives. Yes, we've all seen it. We've all experienced it. We know what you guys do. And it's crazy because, folks, California has declared war on all federal agents. They, in fact, passed legislation, No Secret Police Act, to go after law enforcement agents who are simply doing their job, taking rapists, murderers, and the worst of the worst off the streets. ICE agents, as you see here on your screen, DHS coming out saying that there's like 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers. Now, I'm sure that's significantly higher since this week. But if you watch how that's gone up, because I'm on the email list, so I get their emails. I mean, it went from like 500% to 700%, and now we're way over 1,000. Gavin Newsom lighting that fire. AOC lighting that fire. MSNBC talking heads lighting that fire. You know, the New York Post put together an article where they outline who said what and how they are the ones who are amplifying all of this, how they are the ones who are igniting all of this. You know, I'm not for censorship. I'm not. But I am for people taking responsibility for their actions. And these people continuously go out there and attack people who are simply doing their job, getting rid of rapists. I mean, I see the email list every single day. ICE is taking rapists off the streets every single day. I get the emails. And they are accused of the most egregious crimes, convicted of the most egregious crimes. In fact, 70% of the people they've detained are those with criminal records. Murderers who have fled other countries and came to the United States to hide are on our streets right now. Guess who's getting them? Not Gavin Newsom, not Ilhan Omar, not AOC, not Eric Swalwell, not Elizabeth Warren. Joy Reid, nope, not her. She's too busy race baiting. Other hateful trolls are also involved in all of this. Joe Scarsberger, another horrible human being, out here every single day, these people going after these people, intentionally trying to target them, trying to get them targeted. They don't care about these brave men and women who go out there every day and are taking the worst off the streets. They probably don't even read the DHS reports that are coming out. The reports are clear as day. There was just a report that came out yesterday. ICE put a detainer on an individual who was accused in this country of strangling a 3-month-old baby. Guess who's going for him? Guess who's going to get him off the streets? Not Democrats. No. Democrats would rather hand him a voting card. It's enraging. It's so enraging that this is going on right now in our country, but this is what's happening. And you can't be afraid to talk about it. And that's the problem, folks. They want us to all fear them. They don't want us to go outside anymore. They don't want us to do any outdoor activities. Here's that story I was just citing. Thank you, guys. Pure evil. I believe Border Hawks actually broke this story first yesterday or a couple of days ago. Now everyone else is picking it up. But again, these are the kind of people one would think you don't want in your country. One would think. But again, Democrats, for some reason, are trying to make a case to keep these people in our country. It makes my blood boil, folks. I have like a zero tolerance policy when it comes to these types of cases. I started my career covering sexual assault cases, and this was in New York. So I sat here and watched as Democrats in New York literally did nothing to help victims, literally did more to help actual suspects, though. And you're sitting back and you're watching all of this and you're trying to talk to victims and help them rationalize the fact that their story will be impactful. Their story will prevent another victim from coming forward. Reality is, if Democrats stay in power, that's not going to do anything. But they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. I don't know. I don't want to see censorship. I hate censorship. I hate any infringements on free speech. But I think those who are intentionally inciting these mentally disturbed individuals within their own party, because they know right now they're very well aware of what's going on here. They just won't tell you about it. They won't admit to it. But they're hoping another one of their crazies takes out one of their political enemies. And they don't even pretend to mourn the loss when it happens. In fact, we saw many cheering, refusing to have prayer on the House floor. It's hard to believe that we have to share a country with these people. It truly, truly is. It truly, truly is. I want to turn to another story, and throughout the show today, we're going to be doing deep dives into all of this because this dropped yesterday afternoon, and it's reports, again, I hate having to cite the mainstream media, but MSNBC is claiming that they have 3 sources that say former FBI Director James Comey is expected to be indicted on criminal charges in the upcoming days in a federal court in Virginia. You know who actually told you about this, potentially? The grand jury's going on. He mentioned Virginia. Alex Jones did. I believe it was earlier this week. He told you there was multiple grand juries going on all across the country. And he said Virginia. Now, again, if you're wondering what Comey could be potentially charged with, it's looking like, according to this report, lying to Congress. Now, obviously, this is all about Russiagate. No surprise there. There were many times when James Comey decided to lie to the American people. Literally the sound bites, I was trying to go through them this morning. There are so many sound bites of his lies. And we see now all of the documents coming out thanks to DNI. But we know he was lying to the American people. And so accountability must come. So in clip 3, we're going to go through specifically just some of the top lies that James Comey has told to Congress over the years. Take a listen.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Question 2 on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Has any classified information relating to President Trump or his associates been declassified and shared with the media?
Not to my knowledge. There have been a variety of leaks. Well, leaks are always a problem, but especially in the last 3 to 6 months. Look, this was terrible. It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election. But honestly, it wouldn't change the decision. Everybody who disagrees with me has to come back to October 28th with me and stare at this and tell me what you would do. Would you speak or would you conceal? And I could be wrong, but we honestly made a decision between those two choices that even in hindsight, and this has been one of the world's most painful experiences, I would make the same decision. I would not conceal that on October 28th from the Congress. And I sent a letter to Congress. By the way, people forget this. I didn't make a public announcement. I sent a private letter to the chairs and the rankings of the oversight committees. I know it's a distinction without a difference in the world of leaks, but it was very important that I tell them instead of concealing. And reasonable people can disagree, but that's the reason I made that choice. And it was a hard choice. I still believe in retrospect, the right choice, as painful as
We're not buying anything he's trying to sell. Obviously, folks, he was a key player in the Russiagate scandal, and he was one of the many cooking up the lies and trying his very best to go after Donald Trump, and even lying to Congress about it. So right now, it appears that James Comey is on borrowed time. In fact, that he might end up in prison if things go well. If we really do have a Department of Justice. But again, maybe his daughter will defend him and lose. No, she might not throw that case intentionally. Maureen Comey these days, she's very available for legal defense. Thankfully, the DOJ was kind enough to clear out her schedule for her by firing her. She can help her dad, though. She can help her dad. Any victims of her father, though, she probably will make sure that you don't find out about any of the individuals behind her dad. She did such a great job at covering up for the individuals who were allegedly involved in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, obviously, as well as Diddy. Never told you who any of the sex trafficking victims were being brought to in the Diddy trial. Who was a part of those sex parties? Maureen Comey, she does a great job at burying the truth. Folks, we have way more to unpack. We are just getting started. So do not go anywhere. I'm going to dive into this too because Stephen Miller is actually sounding off about James Comey. And it's a great, great moment. So take just a few moments. We're going to be right back in just a second. So do not go anywhere.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
Welcome back to the American Journal. I am Brianna Morello. Thank you for being with me today, folks. We are excited that you are all here. A lot going on. We're hearing about movement over at the DOJ, and it's long overdue. You've waited for it. You voted for it. This is what you wanted. You wanted accountability for all of the deep state operatives, and this appears to be the start. We're learning more and more about, according to MSNBC, which I hate citing, the potential indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Now, the news has some of my favorite people sounding off, and this includes Stephen Miller. Take a listen.
To make on that subject or question, but I'm always happy to talk about disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, who of course is corrupt, who of course has been engaged in vast amounts of illicit and unlawful conduct, who of course was at the center of the Russiagate attack and assault on American democracy. There are so many people, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Monaco, all across the government under previous administrations who have worked tirelessly to try to dismantle our democracy. And it has to lead somewhere to accountability.
There's got to be accountability.
There needs to be accountability, and we demand accountability these days. Nobody wants to see this continuously being dragged on. Enough is enough. These people deserve to go to prison. What they've done to this country over these last few years has been absolutely egregious and nothing shy of treason. They knew exactly what they were doing. They just thought they were going to get away with it. But now the tables have turned. If you don't lock these people up, if you don't throw them in prison, guess what? It will continue to happen again and again. You see, the lawfare that we saw over these last 4 years, it was infuriating, to say the least. Hearing from friends who were being targeted for simply doing their jobs, for standing right by President Donald Trump's side through all of this. They had their homes raided. They were indicted. their life savings completely drained. Not many are able to just even fund the lawfare itself. That's the big angle on lawfare. They know you can't pay for it. They know you can't fund it. And so they go after the little man first, trying to trickle the way up to President Trump. That's what it was all about. I mean, I remember talking to Stuart Rhodes, an attorney, telling me they are trying to use my case as a blueprint to go after Donald J. Trump. And he was right. Because every argument they made against Stuart Rhodes was then made against President Donald Trump when they tried to indict him. But good news. Those that were going after the president, well, they're actual criminals. And they're finally starting to get their own taste of their medicine. People like, according to reports, Tish James. She is very close to being indicted. The news broke yesterday. Let's take a listen.
Office is expected to charge Tish James, the New York Attorney General, with mortgage fraud. And of course, Donald Trump, we all saw it posted on Truth Social in recent days, exhorting his Attorney General to charge both of those people as soon as possible. Again, you know, grand juries are secret. This is a fluid situation. It's also important to know, though, that the U.S. attorney, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in this office, Eric Siebert, was essentially forced out last week, in part because he was refusing to bring these cases. We're told that he was opposed to prosecuting both James and Comey on these grounds.
Okay, so first thing first. Okay, I want to talk about how is it possible that MSNBC is getting all these leaks? MSNBC claims that they spoke to 3 DOJ sources who know about James Comey's looming indictment. And now they have the story on Letitia James. Sounds like the DOJ might have a problem on its hands. Because when someone's comfortable enough to turn to MSNBC to leak multiple people, chances are they're not on our side. They're in fact biased. Because why would you turn to MSNBC to leak a story like this? Probably worth noting. Letitia James, everyone else going to claim, oh, it's lawfare. He's coming after me. But it's not lawfare. What they did was lawfare, especially Tish James, because she decided to manipulate the law to go after the president. She actually took an incident where there was no actual victims. And when all the parties listened and it said they'd actually do business with Donald Trump again, she somehow, in a kangaroo court, was able to get a massive verdict, which was obviously overturned. But again, she did this intentionally. She told you this is what she ran on. When she campaigned for this position, she ran on the commitment of going after the president. And she did just that. So you want to talk about lawfare? It's only right that she is the first one to get taken down. You see, Tish James needs to go to prison. She needs to lose her license in regards to practicing law. And she needs to go to prison. What she did, how she targeted President Trump and others, is nothing shy of egregious, obviously. We talk about that all the time. I say that all the time. But that woman is full of hate. She's full of rage. And she went after innocent people who had nothing to do with whatever she was trying to do. People who have never committed a crime. And then she geared up and went after President Donald Trump. And the problem, we mentioned that Truth Social post that came out, I believe it was on Sunday, where President Trump was being critical of Pam Bondi. We were all like kind of scratching our heads wondering, was this not supposed to be made public? But now they are using that Truth Social post to pretend like lawyers with credible backgrounds didn't want to indict any of these individuals because somehow, some way, they were innocent. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. So we're excited to see some people go to prison. That's what better happen. We will not forget. We will not back down. This is the message here that we're referring to. Thanks for pulling this up, guys. This one here it's quite the strange message, because then moments later he corrected it, said Pam Bondi's the best. But it sounded like he was trying to put her feet to the fire, saying that none of these people who went after him are being indicted. Now, again, if you've been following for what's been going on for the last 8, 10 years, you know that they're the actual criminals. And interesting enough, if James Comey is not indicted by Tuesday, the statute is up. So we're going to find out from now to Tuesday whether or not he is going to get arrested, as he should. We're going to sit back, we're going to wait, we're going to watch. Grand jury might be in Virginia. Hoping it's not a left-leaning side of Virginia. I'm hoping we could find a non-biased jury to actually listen to the evidence and not come up with their own type of political opinion on the issue. These people committed legitimate crimes, and you can't let them get away with it. We've been demanding that the DOJ step in, start filing charges, start going after these people, and now we're finally starting to see a pulse, if these reports are accurate. I want to turn to something else because this was very interesting. So the Associated Press is reporting that they got their hands on a memo. And ultimately, they're saying that hundreds of federal employees who lost their jobs due to DOJ cuts are being asked to return. It comes from the General Service Administration. And apparently those who have left are being asked if they want their jobs back, saying that those who accept must report for duty on October 6th after what amounts to about a 7-month paid vacation trip. I mean, you practically just paid for government employees to go on vacation for 7 months. That's fun. Again, I hope the AP got this wrong, but it looks like hundreds, according to the Associated Press, hundreds of government employees who were tossed out by DOJ are getting their jobs back. Ultimately, the outcome was the agency was left broken and understaffed. According to an individual named Chad Becker, a former GSA real estate official. Oh, man. Not what you voted for. Not what you voted for. But listen, we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, again, this is the Associated Press, so bear with me. But they're saying they have a memo. And if they have a memo, that's all you need. Again, they didn't release images of what the memo was. I don't do that, though, personally, because you never know if there's any like invisible watermarks on an email, on a document that could bring it back to the source. But again, you didn't vote for that. So I'll be reaching out for comment, and I will let you know if we hear back on that front. I want to turn to some good news, especially for somebody that was persecuted for January 6th. We're seeing a resignation. Federal prosecutor Jeffrey Nestler, who was the one who went after Stewart Rhodes and other Oath Keepers for their January 6 criminal court cases. Well, apparently he's been dropped off a handful of cases tonight, including one regarding those embassy employees who were murdered in D.C., those Israeli embassy employees. Well, according to reports, they're saying that he is no longer with the DOJ. That's what it appears to be. Again, we don't know what's going on here. The document itself just saying, let me zoom in on this, as counsel of the United States is hereby terminating his appearance as counsel of record. And that comes from Judge Pirro. So again, it looks like he might not be with the DOJ anymore. Now, if you don't know who this individual is, let me tell you. So I actually just pulled up his LinkedIn page. Let's see if his LinkedIn page is dated. This was a bad person. So according to his LinkedIn account right now, he is, you guys are so great. He is still working for the DOJ. So we'll see how it unravels. But keep in mind, folks, this was the man, and I covered Stewart Rhodes' case quite well because I had so many people on who were in the courtroom for Rhodes. I was talking to Rhodes. They completely went after Stewart Rhodes. Stewart Rhodes did not go into the Capitol on January 6th. They tried to use lies. They tried to say, oh, he signaled for his guys to go in. And when those guys said, no, he didn't tell us to go in. One guy said, oh, well, it was kind of insinuated that we were going to go. But Rhodes didn't give us any directives, really. It just kind of, we all just guessed, which was a lie, which is not true. Stuart Rhodes did not give him the directive to go inside of the Capitol. He actually told those who did go inside of the Capitol immediately after, when they came up to him, that was really stupid. 2 J6ers telling me that he literally directly told them that it was stupid for them to go in the Capitol. But none of that matters. None of it matters that Stuart Rhodes is an attorney, somebody who studied law at some very privy Ivy League schools. They still went after him because they wanted to completely annihilate the Oath Keepers, which again is an organization that has never been charged with any type of criminal behavior up until January 6th. Peaceful, no history of violence. Although the media will lie to you and tell you, oh, they're far-right militant group. No, they're not. So this individual, this federal prosecutor, Jeffrey Nessler, okay, there's many allegations about how he handled that trial. The first major one was how he was somehow able to get witnesses on the stand who did not witness what they said they witnessed on the stand because, well, we know they didn't. Steve Baker doing incredible work, uncovering and digging into all of this, actually going through the surveillance footage from that day and finding out that one of the key witnesses, one of the Capitol police officers who claims he saw a brush up between Harry Dunn and 2 of the Oath Keepers, they found him in another building, even though he claimed during Stuart Rhodes' trial, the Oath Keepers' criminal trial for January 6th, that he witnessed the altercation. He didn't witness it. He wasn't even there. That witness brought to you by Jeffrey Nessler. So he might be leaving the department. It looks like he's leaving the department. Kyle Cheney saying that, quote, is leaving the department. But he should not be able to practice law ever again. These are the kind of people who should not be allowed to prosecute crime in this country. And it was so crazy to sit back and watch because, you know, Baker didn't even think about it until the judge was so strong on the fact that there was a document that shouldn't be brought forward. And that document was an original document allegedly detailing, and I've never seen the document, but this is what they all alleged, detailing Harry Dunn's account of what happened that day. And then magically that document disappeared and Harry Dunn had a whole new narrative, according to reports, according to the Oath Keepers I've spoken to. So again, Jeffrey Nessler, I mean, this guy right here, this is Harry Dunn. If you don't have the honor of knowing who this is, let me explain to you. This, I've got some bad words. I won't say it. I'll keep it to myself. It's too early to be that mean. But he's just an evil human being. And he knows he's evil. Because I heard him like just asking, like, you think my testimony was the reason why those guys were sentenced to prison? 18 years in prison, Stuart Rhodes was sentenced to. Yeah, Harry. Yeah. Yeah. And Jeffrey Nessler decided to put all of these guys on the stand or on the defense side of things, even though they all had different cases. Some of the guys who were put on the same criminal trial didn't even know each other. And so they were all facing different accusations. But obviously a jury can't sit back and understand what's going on when you're throwing out all of these accusations out there. And Judge Mehta, Obama-appointed judge, not a very good judge. And again, that's me being very nice. It's too early in the morning to use mean words. But Mehta, not a good person. Not a good person at all. He was the one who withheld a lot of the information that the jury should have seen. But for some reason, he was very protective over the jury not being able to see the original document with Harry Dunn's account. Even threatening to go after one of the lawyers who may leak it to the media. You know what's crazy too? The fact that they were able to get away with all of this. The fact that these people aren't being taken off the bench. The fact that it looks like Jeffrey Nessler might just be walking away from everything peacefully. Not fired. Not being disbarred. These are the things that need to happen. These are the things that must happen. You cannot trust our justice system if people like this still exist and are still working within it. What they did to Stuart Rhodes is going to happen to everyone. What they did to the Oath Keepers, Kelly Meggs, Ken Harrelson. You know, I'm still suing the federal government over this stuff too, to try to get some documents. New administration, they won't give over everything. Like a lot of these men, during very strategic parts during their criminal trials, whether it was right before the criminal trials were going to begin or when they were about to start the appeals process, a lot of these guys had their benefits pulled from the VA. People who didn't even go to their trial yet were getting their benefits pulled. Ken Harrelson, another man who was on trial with Stuart Rhodes, he's forward. His wife sent me a letter, and it was a letter that came from the VA saying that he was getting his benefits pulled, and he couldn't be buried. I believe it was his letter where it said he couldn't be buried in one of their cemeteries if he were to pass away, even though he was not convicted of anything. They were yanking away all of his benefits, pretending like he didn't serve this country. I still am actually suing the Veterans Affairs for that. And guess what? They won't give me anything. I want to know who told them at the DOJ to do what they did. Because it's not a coincidence. I sat back and I watched multiple veterans reach out to me, and they all have the same stories. Before my criminal trial, my benefits were yanked. And then they told me, oh, it's a mistake. Sorry. Those who were charged with misdemeanors, their benefits were pulled when they're not supposed to be pulled because they weren't convicted of a felony. Wasn't until we started reaching out, until I started emailing them, until I started hounding them for an explanation. Guess what happens? Oh, just a mistake. Sorry, not sorry. Not sorry. So I am now suing. And actually, if you want to hear what their defense is, the VA tells me they can't give me these documents, they can't give me these communications because they don't have a way of looking for it. Even though they're an agency that is supposed to get FOIA requests, so they should have some type of database to search through. They can't do it. They can't do it. That's what they're telling my attorneys. Trying to get that case thrown out. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to cough up all the information. And it's not just that. They were also added to TSA terror watch list, which later this month is actually going to be a hearing next week on. You guys are the best. That's the lawsuit. Still pending. Unfortunately, your taxpayer money is going to have to go towards this lawsuit because the government, at the end, they're going to lose. And then they have to pay my legal fees. Again, that's what the government's doing with your money. They're not even trying to respond to FOIA requests. And you think new administration, new rules. No. No one's going to figure that out. They're going to hide everything from us still. I want to turn to an exclusive that NBC News released earlier today. Extremists used Discord to recruit American youth. Officials are now warning. State and federal law enforcement agencies warned earlier this year that young people were at risk of being radicalized on chat platform Discord. That's according to a government document obtained by NBC News. Now they're citing 2 intelligence assessments from DHS and Ohio's statewide terrorism analyst and crime center. Now, we've been talking about this for a very long time now. When I look at a lot of these terrorist attacks that are being carried out, a lot of these mass shootings that are being carried out, Discord is always mentioned. It's always mentioned. And when we have Alex Rosen on this show, Alex Rosen is catching a lot of predators on Discord. Now, again, Discord is denying the allegations in regards to Charlie Kirk's assassin. They're saying that the suspect that's currently in custody and is charged with going after and killing Charlie, they're saying that he didn't plan the attack on their platform. Now, officials have released some chats, which they claim came from Discord, and those chats appear to be after the shooting. But again, we don't see timestamps. I can't tell if they're legitimate. And so I reached out to Discord to get some verification on that, and they have not responded. But this is just one of many. That Buffalo shooting that took place in that supermarket in upstate New York. Discord was a factor in that as well. There were other local high school shootings. I believe there's one in Georgia. But again, this is what's going on all around the country. NBC claiming that both the documents that they have now obtained are unclassified but marked for official use only. It is unclear how widely these documents were distributed all across law enforcement agencies. The report, which draws on academic studies and law enforcement data, provides insight on how officials understand the risk of online radicalization. Apparently, the FBI and DHS did not respond to requests for comment in regard to Discord. Discord's been around for a while. 2015, it's been around since. They're due, actually, and this is going to be another one. I believe it was Jim Jordan, or no, it was James Comer, who is calling them now to testify. They're going to be a part of a big group of CEOs and other big tech companies being asked to come forward because they want to talk to them about this stuff. Again, it's a massive platform, so it's probably very, very difficult to be able to sift a lot of this stuff out. But what did they know? And are they holding anything back? These are key questions that need to be asked, and we're thankful that that's going to start happening soon. That's going to start happening soon. Folks, don't go anywhere. We've got, like I said, I keep telling you all of this. We've got a packed program coming your way today. But if you haven't done so already, head on over right now to the AlexJonesStore.com because, folks, we have a great new addition for all of you VIP members. Ultimate Creatine has now been added to the store for VIP members only. So you got to head on over to the AlexJonesStore.com. If you work out, creatine you need in your diet. I can promise you that. I love working out, obviously. And every time I finish doing an arm workout, leg workout, you got to take creatine. It helps significantly relieve muscle pain and everything. And it's definitely a must-have. So head on over right now to the AlexJonesStore.com. For VIP members only, you can snag some Ultimate Creatine, support our work here by going to the AlexJonesStore.com right now. We've got more underway, so do not go anywhere, folks. Are with us today. A lot going on in the world. We're playing catch up on all the news and so many updates coming your way. So thank you for being here. We're heading into the second hour of the program. And I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot going on right now. We sat back last week and we kind of talked about obviously all of the violence going on throughout our country. And for some reason, the left still isn't backing down. We're seeing what happened yesterday outside that ICE facility in Dallas. And they're not like reasonable people do, trying to tone down their rhetoric. The left is still out there spewing hate, still trying to get their political opponents killed because, well, they just disagree with them. The left is full of hate. This New York Post cover, so accurate, so accurate. It's disturbing times we're in, but that's the left for you. And the worst part about it, and we're going to talk about it into the next part of the hour, but the level of hate that these people have for this country is absolutely egregious. And in fact, when we're sitting here and we're trying to mourn the loss of people like Charlie Kirk, they can't even let us do that. 2 women are now learning that lesson the hard way. And we'll go into detail about this in just a few moments. But now they're asking for help. Now they're playing the victim, of course, because victimhood is profitable. Victimhood is profitable. So that's what they are banking in on. So I'll bring you the latest on that front. Also, we're going to talk about AutoPen a little bit. Tom Homan. I know I've been talking about Tom Homan. I know some of you disagree with me on my handling, on my reporting, but I'm not reporting. I'm reporting what they're reporting. And I know people are not very happy about that. But there's a new update in regards to Tom Homan that we're going to give you in just a few moments as well. Plus, there's new details about the Green New Scam. Folks, it's so insane. Billions of dollars of your money has been poured into going green, as they always love to call it. But guess what? It's not working. It's not working. And in California, they have a $2.2 billion problem right now. We're going to dive into that in a little bit. But now this new administration coming out there and saying, we're done with funneling our money into the scam. And that's exactly what it is. So the Department of Energy stepping in and saying, we're not going to let your money go to it anymore. We're going to now step in and give that money back to the Treasury, which is very impressive. Actually, I think it's a much bigger story than anyone's covered. No one's actually covering that story, but we will in just a few moments. And when it comes to the First Amendment, and I'm going to have a talk about this with you guys, because when it comes to the First Amendment, I obviously am a big supporter. The pandemic has made me a First Amendment absolutist. I don't care. Say what you got to say. You should be able to say it without being censored. But for some reason, Democrats, the ones who were trying to censor us over these last few years, are now the ones out there crying about the First Amendment being violated. And they're also just sitting out here and just trying to spew these things without taking any credit for it, right? Like without saying, oh, well, we just sat here for the last couple of years telling you that Donald Trump was a Nazi. Donald Trump was a white supremacist. Multiple assassination attempts against Donald Trump, the president of the United States. Oh, we didn't do that. Oh, the Dallas ICE facility that was shot up yesterday? Yeah, we're literally going out there and saying that they're kidnapping people off the streets. Yeah, we're literally going out there and telling people that they are fascists. Oh, but the shooting, that had nothing to do with us. Yeah, yeah, he's probably mentally ill, probably one of our followers. But don't blame us for it. We didn't do anything. It's funny how now they become advocates for free speech when they're using their speech to cause violence throughout this country. So we'll dive into that in just a few moments. So obviously a lot going on today in the world of news. Every time I open up Twitter, it's like a new story. But don't worry, we'll get you through it. We've got the second hour kicking off in just a few moments, so do not go anywhere.
You're watching The American Journal with your host, Brianna Morello. Watch it live right now at band.video.
Welcome back to the American Journal. I am Brianna Morello. We're excited that you are all here with us today. Douglas Mackey is going to be joining us later this week, it looks like. He had a scheduling issue, so I know I teased it in the show, so I wanted to keep you guys in the loop. So we'll be looking forward to having him on again soon. But I wanted to dive into some really important stories that you may have not heard about. There's a bunch of young people going around right now, and I feel old when I say young people, but there's a group of young people going around right now, and they're not happy because they disagree with others' political beliefs, people like Charlie Kirk. And so as we go around the country and we hold memorial services for Charlie, they are destroying them. Why? Because they don't like what Charlie Kirk said. And instead of debating him, they're just going to destroy your memorials for him. So these two women are accused of doing just that, and they've been charged. They're sisters, apparently. Carrie and Kaylee Rollo are their names. And in Benton County Courthouse, they have now been charged. Video shows Carrie ripping signs and kicking candles while saying lived as he died, promoting violence. Now, the sisters have since launched a fundraiser because apparently they need help with legal fees. They've lost their jobs, apparently. They're not doing well. According to the New York Post, they're looking for $18,000. That's their goal. But it's a continuous theme here, right? Like, these were the people that were doxing us, were going after us for simply saying all lives matter. No. They didn't like that. So they went after us. I know it happened to me. They tried to go after me. I was working in so-called conservative media, so you strike and you miss. Not the brightest people, actually. I remember hearing that they were actually calling. This is the time I was working for Fox. They were trying to contact Fox's human resources department to get me fired for posting a video saying, get the BLM's nonsense out of my timeline. I don't support this Marxist agenda. And so apparently they had called and they were trying to figure out where I was and if I was employed. And they were trying to find my employer. They couldn't. Guess what? No one cared. They're not very intelligent, these people. But folks, not surprising at all. Not surprising. So now these two sisters, obviously, and I don't think their lives should be destroyed. There should be a lesson learned here. You can't just do that to people. They need to learn a lesson, but they shouldn't have their lives ruined. But right now, it looks like they are being charged for vandalizing Charlie Kirk's memorial. They're asking people for donations because they need help. Fight against fascism. Help me pay for our legal fees. That's the headline of the fundraiser. Don't go there. Don't donate. I don't have to tell you guys that. But folks, these people are full of so much hate and rage. They don't understand. You know, when you're that young, when you're 22, 23, you don't really know politics. You just regurgitate whatever you're told. I actually don't think your brain is fully developed for females specifically until you're like 25. So keep that in mind. I won't hold it against them. Their brain's still developing. But hopefully they learned a lesson there. I want to turn to a new addition at the White House. This video is amazing. So as we continue to go through the AutoPen scandal, the White House has a brand new addition to their presidential walk of fame. This is in the West Wing. You'll notice it. See if you spot it. See if you spot it. There it is. No Joe Biden, but they've got the AutoPen. It's pretty accurate, folks. That's pretty accurate. You love to see it. You love to see it because, again, Joe Biden wasn't running the White House. I love this, the presidential walk of fame. Joe Biden was an absolute disgrace, obviously was not running things. We've known about this. The media is now starting to talk about it like, we had no idea. We had no idea. When you go through his pardon list, some of the most egregious human beings on the face of this earth. I think I was the only reporter to go through things and to find that he had actually commuted the sentence of an individual who was a Chinese national who was charged with having thousands of child pornographic images on his devices. It actually, I believe, happened in Texas. The crime was so egregious that law enforcement, after seeing a couple of thousands of images, just decided to stop going through all of his devices because they had enough. They didn't want to keep looking through it. They didn't want to keep seeing these awful, awful images. And so a human being like that, one would think, lock him up in prison forever. No. AutoPen commuted his sentence and shipped him back to China. Now, again, he was a college student. He was a college student. A Chinese national college student. Just came here to learn a couple of things from us. Now, why do you think China wanted him back? Probably was a spy. My bet's on he's being a spy. And there was other spies, too, who were shipped back over to China. We got like low-level criminals back in return. But again, when I compare that document, it looks like AutoPen signed that one. One of the many things Mr. Ed Martin has to sift through. One of the many things Ed Martin has to sift through. You know how many people ignored this report until mine went viral? The mainstream media didn't even cover it. No one even asked the Biden regime any questions about it. I mean, my gosh, when it's someone with thousands of child pornographic images, it's just released and tossed away. One of the terms of his commutation, I don't know how you'd say it. One of the terms of him being commuted is that he can't come back to the United States. Do you think he's coming back to the United States? Of course not. Of course not. Who would want that man back? Probably if he was a spy. You know, I constantly talk to individuals too, and I think this is important to mention, about individuals who get child pornographic images placed on their devices, or there's like an attempt to, when they want to silence someone. There's several journalists who have had the brush up. The only one who's really come public about it is Cheryl Atkinson. You guys are the best. Again, this was the report that I was referring to. 47,000 child pornographic images in his possession. after he pleaded guilty. He received a 97-month sentence. I don't even understand how. I mean, that's just so light. Again, Plano police. Oh, Plano police. Duh. That's where I'm from. The Plano police confirmed 1,300 of the images, and then they just stopped. Because, I mean, how many times are you going to want to watch these videos of children being raped? Probably not a lot. I don't even know how members of law enforcement even put up with it, even do it. But again, why was this individual released? Nobody ever asked. AutoPen. I did a sit-down interview, or actually, it wasn't sit-down, it was a remote interview with Cheryl Atkinson, I should say. Now, obviously, she's an incredible award-winning reporter, but when she was reporting on things that the Obama administration didn't like, suddenly, she received a tip that the federal government was trying to plant child pornographic images on her husband's devices. Now, this is a consistency we see quite often, right? Ryan Ruth, we talk about him. He's the second assassination attempt individual who went after President Trump. His son was caught just, I think, maybe a week afterwards with child pornographic images. The individual who at first was arrested after the Charlie Kirk assassination, that individual was also arrested and accused now of having child pornographic images. And then there's mass shooters. There was a shooter in Vegas. I believe it was a brother or an uncle. Don't quote me on that. I probably looked that up for you. Another one. But there's always this consistency. So I just think it's really interesting that this always seems to happen. Now, again, obviously, this is the most egregious crime I think one could actually be accused of. Anything to do with hurting children is, to me, the worst of the worst. But I just think it's interesting, right? Why would a Chinese spy have thousands of child pornographic images on his device? He pleaded guilty, so he had them. 47,000. What was he going to do with that? Well, now we'll never know, thanks to the Biden regime. So we need to do the digging into all of this. Ed Martin, I mean, we spoke about Ed Martin yesterday on the show. He's trying his very best. He's got this one. I know when I saw the actual signature, I flagged it for him because it looked like AutoPen too. So, I mean, Ed Martin has his work cut out for him. I don't know how he does it. I assume that people over at the DOJ aren't very happy with him because he's the only one who's aggressively going out there and fighting this fight, taking this fight up. He is fearless. He wants to make sure all of these individuals are held accountable. So he's got so much on his plate, even trying to get to the bottom of who went after InfoWars. Obviously, Alex breaking that news earlier in the week. But Ed Martin is an absolute patriot. One of the very few individuals really in this fight right now, really trying to go out there and get these people. You know, I've had the pleasure of speaking with Ed, had him on my show. That story made national news because we talked about how the FBI, which the mainstream media has never even heard about because they only look this way, give him a press release. I called someone out about this yesterday on X, actually. You give them a press release, and they report whatever's in the press release, which, again, isn't journalism, and I would argue it's propaganda. But this is what they do. They don't want to do any digging. They don't want to do a deep dive. There was a local news reporter in Texas that decided to go after ICE because ICE had detained a man, an Islamist, who has strong ties, I'm told, to very concerning organizations. The Rare Foundation did the digging into that report, came out, put out a very honest report that was well-researched, it looks like. And then a local news reporter comes out and literally posts everything that the defendant's attorney told him without an ounce of research. That's the difference, folks. That's the difference. You guys are on fire today. The Rare Foundation is one of my go-to sources. They do incredible work. Amy Mack, we talked about it yesterday on the show. This woman is a fighter. She's been in this fight for quite some time. She does incredible work. So this was the story that she released yesterday, I believe. And it's like comparison between this and the local news report. It's, how did you get this? Oh, the attorney wrote you. The defendant's attorney put out whatever they want to put out, and you just used exactly that and didn't challenge it, because that's journalism. So that's what they want you to think. Amy Meck does real journalism, though. She does the digging, she does the research, she compiles the evidence, and then everyone just steals it from her. We see it time and time again. Like, I feel like I've seen this report somewhere. Oh, Amy Meck had it like a month ago. Definitely worth a follow on X as well. Let's talk about Tom Homan, because I know a lot of you were a little upset that I was reporting on what everyone else is reporting on. And again, I'm going to give you both sides of it. I'm going to tell you what they're saying so that you know how to prepare for it. And I think it's always worth looking into these things. Some of these things do stick. But Tom Homan saying that what you saw earlier in the week regarding a bribery allegation is actually false. And we're going to play a clip for you because he went off yesterday in clip 8, just a moment though. But Tom Homan, in case you guys missed this, Tom Homan was apparently under investigation for taking a $50,000 bribe from undercover FBI agents. Now, MSNBC is saying that the Trump administration shut it down. Again, another leaker, possibly at the DOJ. They're running up a lot of leaks over the DOJ. Probably haven't purged all of the filth from the DOJ yet. But that's a whole nother story. But they're upset because they're accusing Tom Homan of taking a $50,000 bribe. Now, I've actually reached out to the FBI. They say they have no further comment, just saying that, yes, there was something that was being investigated by the previous administration, but they actually view Tom Homan as the victim, that he was being targeted, and this was lawfare. And how can you sit there and make a commitment to anyone where if you pay me $50,000, I'll get you a government contract when you're not actually in a government role? And so that's their defense in all of this, that they don't see that there's an actual crime being committed because, again, Tom Homan wasn't in a position to offer any type of government contracts. Now, again, those recordings have not been released. But Tom Homan went to go sound off on the issue yesterday, and he's actually pushing back. Let's take a listen.
What is the story with this, and where did it come from?
Well, look, as the Justice Department said, I did nothing criminal, I did nothing illegal, I did nothing wrong. And this is a series of hits against me since the beginning of the year. There's been hit pieces about every week. There was a hit piece on my security detail saying I had 31 security detail. I'm wasting millions of dollars. I had about a quarter of that. I think I had 8 security detail at the time. I had a 4-car Caravan. I had 2. Another story about I'm helping certain companies with their contracts. Here's what people need to understand. Day one of the administration, when President Trump asked me to come back and we entered on duty, I met with ethics attorneys, and by law, you're supposed to recuse yourself from any company you had affiliations with before. But I took it a step further. I recused myself from all federal contracts. I won't have any decision-making in any federal contract, but people, including this recent case, people are saying, I'm going to line the pockets of people. I signed that declaration. I do not make decisions in any federal contracts. And just so people know, I make about 18% of what I've made in my company to come back and serve my nation. So my family's took a sacrifice, I've taken a sacrifice, I'm back here doing the right thing. The hit pieces keep coming, but I know who's chumming the water. I know who keeps throwing this information out, and the media jumps all over it. And they're going to see some legal actions real soon. I'm working with the legal team. I'm done with it. They can attack me all they want, but we're going to take action.
Yeah. You heard it. He's speaking out. He's defending himself. Listen, Tom Homan sounds very convincing. I would just like to hear the recordings. But again, we saw how aggressive the Biden regime was with going after their political opponents. So I don't doubt what Tom Homan's saying. See, here's the thing, right? I don't jump to conclusions. I try never to. I wait for the evidence to come about. And if Tom Homan's going to be filing these lawsuits, like it sounds like he's going to be doing, going after these networks, going after these media outlets, we'd love to see it. We'd love to see it because it's very, very pricey to defend yourself like this. I get it. But it's your reputation on the line. And you have to. You have no other choice. I want to talk a little bit about, let me just give you an update on what President Trump's doing today, because I think that's really important. President Trump today is meeting with the president of the Republic of Turkey. That's on his schedule for 11 a.m. Eastern time today. He's also going to be signing executive orders. Now, I do not know what executive orders these are, and it is closed to the press, so we do not have press access to this. But he's expected to sign these executive orders at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time today. Then after that, he's actually meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So a lot going on today for President Trump. He seems to be doing a lot in the Middle East. You know, we saw when they were all at the UN, there were reports that he was having multiple meetings with Middle Eastern countries. Now, I'm not sure what they're exactly working on. So we'll have to see. But again, I wasn't really thrilled with the fact that the Syrian president was here and was taking meetings again yesterday. And I keep saying it. They keep pretending like he's reformed. But he is a Al-Qaeda leader. They say former. We say prove it. I don't even know how someone could be a former terrorist. That's a heck of a background, a heck of a resume. You know, we used to not like people like that. We actually used to place bounties on their heads. The Syrian president, once we had a $10 million bounty on his head. Now he's shaking hands with Marco Rubio. Apparently meeting with President Trump. Speaking at the UN, I think he spoke yesterday at the UN about Israel. We'll spare you of it, though. We'll spare you of it. Regardless of how your politics fall, when someone is a terrorist, a known terrorist, someone who allowed hundreds and thousands of Christians to be slaughtered just a few months ago, you don't pretend like they're reformed. You actually hold them accountable. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. I want to read to you a disturbing story in regards to a woman who they believe, officials believe, is linked to cartels. She's a baby trafficker, and she was just recently arrested. Martha Alicia Mendez. She was recently apprehended, and she's being accused of enticing pregnant women to come forward, then performing illegal C-sections on them, harvesting their organs, and selling their infants. This story is massive. Joe Kent released this just yesterday. And, you know, they love to call it a conspiracy theory when we talk about organ harvesting, when we talk about these things happening. You know, earlier this week, we obviously had 2 trafficking experts come out and talk to us about the human trafficking in regards to the organ harvesting. And it's so disgusting, but Jared Sadusky did an incredible job at detailing it for you guys as to how they're getting away with this, as to what they're exactly doing. And this woman just recently arrested. This is what happens when Mexican authorities do work with the United States. We're able to capture these really dangerous people. The disturbing part in this, and I don't think this investigation needs to end anytime soon, because according to reports, the infants were sold to U.S. couples for up to $14,000 per child. So what it sounds like these children were ripped from the womb. The mothers had their organs harvested, and then the children were sold. Now, again, I'm sure there's a case-by-case scenario in all of this where not all of these things happen at once. But these accusations are absolutely egregious. The fact that not every mainstream outlet is covering it proves to you who the real enemy is. The enemy is the person refusing to cover this, refusing to give this any type of light, acknowledgement, any of it. You know, this is the incredible work that our federal government is currently doing. Now, although they haven't been doing great work like this, these type of people, this woman, if convicted, needs to burn in hell for all the things she's done. Going after pregnant women, harvesting their organs, selling infants. Who is she selling these infants to? American couples? Who are these couples? Where are the children? This investigation needs to be ongoing. It needs to continue. I want to know where those children are. Now, again, this was a joint effort between U.S. and Mexican officials, and she was located in northern Mexico, according to authorities. This should be a national story. We have people who have stolen babies from pregnant women, had their organs harvested, and somehow, some way sold these children, according to reports, for $14,000. Where are those children? Who is buying those children? Folks, we have way more to dive into during the show today, so we're grateful that you guys are here, but do not go anywhere. We're going to go against a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, there's so much more we're going to talk about, so do not go anywhere.
You're tuned in to the American Journal with your host, Brianna Morello. Watch it live right now at band.video.
Welcome back to the American Journal. We're excited that you are all with us today. A lot happening over here, so thank you for being with us. I mean, I'm trying to go through all the headlines. There's so much news breaking right now. There's so much going on all around the world, and we want to make sure you guys knew about all of it. So, my next story, I want to remind you all about the Green New scam. You know, Democrats had no problem sitting here and propping up all of these Go Green initiatives. Well, we all knew what it was, right? This was just a money funneling scheme for the rest of them. And now we're starting to look all across the country. We're realizing all of these so-called investments are going nowhere. Not surprising. Upstate New York, there was a farm that was being used to go green and to create all these incentives. Wind turbines put up, all these things put up. And guess what? It's actually not working. I graduated college 10 years ago. Last I heard, everything that they put up around a school not working. You're wondering who this was all going to benefit. China, when we did the digging into it, it was all Chinese based. All of our money went to China to build up these turbines who really just went nowhere. Solar panels went nowhere. I was in Vegas that's probably been a year now. Vegas has a bunch of them too. A lot of these things aren't working. No surprise, there's actually a big one right now in California that's not working. Ivan Fath solar power facility in California. The plant with 3 459-foot towers is apparently absolutely worthless after they spent $2.2 billion to construct it. Now, if you're wondering when this all came about, of course, under the Obama regime, construction started in 2010, finished in 2014. It will be closed by next year because guess what? Insufficient when it comes to solar energy production. Now, interesting enough, in 2011, the U.S. Department of Energy provided them with a $1.6 billion federal loan guarantee. And poof, it's going to be done in 2026. I mean, this is insane. Again, there's just so many follow the money schemes going on all around the world right now. How much of this are you really going to follow? And there's a lot. I mean, so many of these companies were just taking money from American companies and doing absolutely nothing with it. Some of it was being shipped off to China. Most of it actually benefited China. I don't think I've ever seen a solar panel in China like you see them here in the United States. Might be something to that, though. But there's some good news, right? Because the Trump administration understands why we're all getting really, really upset about all of this. And the Department of Energy is they made a big announcement yesterday in clip 9. And I want you to listen to it carefully because, again, this is what you voted for. Take a listen.
My Department of Energy has announced we're going to return over $13 billion to the taxpayers. That's over $100 per American family. This was money passed and slated to be energy subsidies. But we need the subsidies have been corrosive because they've not only cost taxpayer money, but then they've led to more expensive electricity bills. We lose twice. So we're doing everything we can in the Trump administration to stop the rise in energy prices.
So money that was going to go to green energy, to subsidize green energy, is instead going back to the Treasury?
Yes.
That's what you voted for, folks. You voted for this scam to be put to an end. Your money going back to where it should have always been. Actually, it should always be in your pocket, not with the U.S. Treasury. But folks, this is what's going on. We saw it. We saw with just weeks remaining of the Biden regime, how quickly they shuffled that money around. Criminal investigations can't happen soon enough. These people who are all involved with all of this need to go to prison. need to go to prison. For far too long, we've been told that we need to go green with science that's always changing, global warming, which promised you probably a beach house in the middle of the country. Well, that's not turning out the way they said it was going to turn out. In fact, we know it because Barack Obama and so many other of these rich, again, it's too early in the morning to say bad words, deep state operatives have purchased homes right by the water, proving that everything they tell you, they don't actually believe. And so again, just another ounce of proof that this Go Green movement is an absolute scam. $1.6 billion of your money shifted to this California plant, gone. Oh, I love this picture. John Kerry. He has to fly private. He's an elitist. You peasants, don't question him. People are absolute garbage, but you know that. That's nothing new. I want to turn to a shooting in Texas because, well, let's just be blunt. The individuals who have been arrested for a shooting in Texas, they have quite interesting names, but I'll let you listen to a local news report out of Texas on how they're detailing how 3 suspects were arrested after shooting a Texas youth baseball coach. Take a listen.
It happened at the RAC Katy Sports Complex, sending parents and coaches running for cover. Troy Class has more of the story.
The RAC Katy is here in the middle of a rural part of Waller County where coaches say they heard gunfire all weekend. Then on Sunday, bullets started flying through the baseball fields. Teams from across Southeast Texas were gathered for this tournament, including the Houston Warriors, a Warriors coach wounded in the shooting.
He literally took the bullet for a child that was to his left. And so thankfully, we avoided a major disaster. Still very, very emotional over it.
Team founder Andy Bays wasn't at the field, but says his coach was engaged in a pregame prayer with his team when the bullets started flying. An online stream captures the gunshots.
When he was struck by the bullet, his first reaction was to get down to the ground, cover his kids, and get them to a safe space.
Today, the Waller County Sheriff's Office says investigators have identified 3 suspects who allegedly fired guns from a nearby pasture in the direction of the field. The RAC Katy stating on Facebook, 3 individuals were target practicing 600 to 700 yards away, though they were not using a nearby gun range. Bays says the coach was taken to the hospital via a helicopter.
How does that even happen in the first place? How does that even happen in the first place? This is what's happening throughout Texas. We're being invaded. I don't know these people's immigration status. I don't know much about their background because they never tell you that up front. You've got to dig into all of that. But the lineup of names, I won't even try. I won't even try that. But the reality of it is this is what's going on throughout Texas. This is what's going on throughout Texas. We've imported so many people from foreign countries, and again, don't know what their status is, but they are just not the brightest, not the brightest. And as you heard, why would they be shooting near children? Well, we'll continue to follow that story. I'm definitely reaching out for comment. I'm going to reach out and figure out what's going on with these men. Who are they? Where are they from? Because again, this is stupidity. And the fact that these baseball coaches are still in the field while they're hearing gunshots going off all around them. I get it that people are probably practicing nearby, but gosh. This is what's going on in Texas. We've imported the dumbest people. You know, during the Biden regime years, exclusively, the lowest IQ countries were shuffling their people into our country. And so now we're sitting back and we're watching how this is all playing out constantly with it's illegal aliens getting driver's licenses, CDL licenses, crashing their cars, crashing, killing Americans. I just recently saw another video. Apparently, they're alleging it was a Chinese driver. Gosh, I hope that's not real. referring to the one on the right. But there's a lot of issues here. There's a lot of issues here. Most don't want to talk about it. They're afraid of being called a nasty word. But if you truly do love this country, then you wouldn't hide from it. I want to turn to something else. I want to turn to another report. So we are going to dive into this letter that was actually recently put out. I'm going to talk about my good friend Sean Parnell. Sean Parnell, and this is clip 17. Sean Parnell is my go-to over at the Department of War. Now, Sean, I've had him on my podcast several times. He is an absolute patriot. It was incredible to actually see him get his position over the Department of War, because I'm sitting back and I'm watching and I'm just so proud of this guy. Absolute fighter. They tried going after him when he ran for Senate in Pennsylvania. He was running for the U.S. Senate and they tried slandering him. The attacks were just so deplorable. I hate saying that word, but they were. Did Hillary Clinton ruin the word deplorable for us? But they were. They went after his personal life, his kids. But he's on the greener grass side of all of this right now. And he's working for the Department of War right now next to Pete Hegseth. And I saw this report. So there was a report that came out. And in the report, they were claiming that there were all these changes being made at the Department of War in regards to how journalists are allowed to cover the department. Now, they claimed there was a memo and that only authorized pieces of information were allowed to be released. But Parnell coming out and saying, and again, I did reach out before posting about this, and I think I told you guys about this on Monday when we did our debunking segment. So ultimately what they were saying is that the Department of War is not going to allow journalists to release unauthorized information. Now, that's not classified information. That's unauthorized information, which, folks, is literally whatever you see a report, it's unauthorized if it's not being given out directly from the department itself. And so, again, I do support leakers when it comes to critical pieces of information that the government's trying to hide. It's how I was able to bring you stories like Tulsi Gabbard being added to a terror watch list. I told the whistleblowers who came forward, prove it. And they did. They showed me the documents that had Tulsi's face literally on the profile. And that's how I was able to tell you that the federal government was abusing its authorities and going after a former U.S. Congresswoman because she said some mean things about the administration, as though she was now being flagged as a terrorist. Okay, so we did that. So keep in mind, leaks aren't always the bad things that are going on right now. But over at the Department of War, they do want to get a grip on all of this. And so we're all game for this, right? Like, there's certain things that should not be released publicly. And I understand why they wouldn't want that to happen. But this has been going on regardless of who's in the White House. So that's the harsh reality. But so Sean Parnell coming out and saying, we made a memo, we sent out a memo, but the memo really doesn't have any drastic changes that were being detailed in this report. In a tweet, he said it should come as no surprise the mainstream media is once again misrepresenting the Pentagon's press procedures. Let's be absolutely clear. Journalists are not required to clear their stories with us. That claim is a lie. Now, again, before I even spoke out about the report, I did reach out for comment, and they told me that last weekend. Now, this we've known for quite some time. There were changes being made at the Department of War. And I don't know why it took this long, honestly, because I don't think journalists should be able to walk around the Pentagon freely. But now they must be brought around sensitive areas. They must be escorted with someone who obviously works for the Department of War. They can't just walk around freely. They must wear their press credentials. Hello? That's literally everything you do. When I worked in sports, in baseball, you always wore your credentials. So this isn't like they're crunching down on journalists. That's what the mainstream media wants you to think. Again, they say that they're not crunching down, they're not going after journalists, not targeting journalists. which is refreshing. I hope that's true. I trust Parnell, so I think it's true. I trust Parnell more than I trust these mainstream media hacks pretending to do journalism. Because again, when the Biden regime was kicking out independent journalists from their rooms, the White House press briefings, when they were having their homes raided, remember James O'Keefe? These journalists didn't stand up. They didn't go out there and fight. They didn't make any issue of it. So it's funny to sit back and watch them all pretend like, oh, we're doing journalism. We're calling out the administration for trying to block us. Politico. Some of their stuff is factual. I can promise you that. I do fact check a lot of the reports, and I do, even if it's not flattering to the current administration, it's true. But I went to go dig into that one, and I'm told it is not true. Nothing new. It's just, we've now put it in writing. Let's shift things over back to the left. Specifically, I want to shift it over to the rhetoric that's being used. Because, we don't shy away from going after them for what they say to their audience, to their mentally unstable individuals who are constantly going out there and committing these heinous attacks. Again, if the left really didn't want to associate themselves with it, they would actually come out and say, we should not be doing this. But they don't claim their own terrorists. They don't try to calm them down. They don't try to be the voice of reason after a terrorist attack. And it feels like every single week now we're reporting on another left-wing terrorist who has decided to shoot up some school, shoot up an ICE facility, assassinate one of our own. And so to sit here and pretend like it's happening on both sides, you'd have to be delusional. You'd have to be delusional. Vice President J.D. Vance has had enough of all of this, and he's going to sound off on it in just a moment, because we got this great clip 14, that I want to play for you guys, because he's had enough of the nasty rhetoric that's being used by those on the left and how they're speaking intentionally, I believe, to cause harm to ICE agents. Let's take a listen.
The very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It is time to stop the rhetorical assault on law enforcement. Because here's what happens. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
Did you guys hear that? It's always refreshing to hear a politician be as direct as that. The reality of it is, yes, they can't go straight to hell. They can't go straight to hell because they are the ones who are stirring this up. Of course, they're probably afraid of the consequences, right? So they're going to sit there and deny it. And even though all the evidence is looking you straight in the face that this individual is on their side, they're just hoping that this individual could somehow, some way be pulled into the MAGA world. They do it time and time again. They are trying their very best to play down how violent they have become, how hateful they have become, because they don't want any liability for what they've done to this country over the last few years. And the last few years, that's me being gracious. These people are full of hate. They're full of rage. And it's good to see J.D. Vance call it out. You know, people like Jasmine Crockett, who thankfully we're hoping if everything goes as planned, will no longer be in the House of Representatives anymore. I'm sure she'll get some like crappy little podcast or something. But for now, things are looking up for us. But this woman over the years just continues to go out there and she's just so hateful. So she's so nasty. I actually want to play clip 11 because I think this is a really good one when she is sitting here and intentionally using her own rhetoric to, again, demonize ICE agents. Take a listen.
Somebody who understands history When I see ICE, I see slave patrols. Now, I never lived through the slave patrol period, but if you know the history of policing in this country, then you understand that they were born out of slave patrols.
Do you feel a little stupider? Yeah. That's how I feel after listening to Jasmine Crockett for 10 seconds. Listen, this woman, she'll pretend to be this get a little hood rat. But the reality is that she actually has a very well-funded educational background. Now, of course, and I love it because Sarah Gonzalez actually called her out straight to her face, and you know that she got so pissed from it. But Jasmine Crockett is intentionally playing a character. That's not authentic. She doesn't actually believe what she's saying. She doesn't believe that they're slave patrol. She's trying to stir the pot. She knows that she has to say outrageous things consistently in order to make the headlines. And if she does it, she'll get a little gifted headline. She'll keep getting these cable news hits. Otherwise, most normal people who listen to her speak understand that she's not very intelligent. She's not very interesting. She's a fake ghetto hood rat. That's the reality behind it. And there's other things we could talk about. I'm working on being a nicer person, so I'll stay away from commenting about her appearance. But she's like a dollar store queen. Nothing more. Nothing more. These people are evil. Infuriating. It's infuriating to have to listen to them all the time. I mean, look at that. Look at those fingernails. Just gross. Absolutely disgusting. Probably should be considerate if you're eating breakfast right now watching the show and take that off the screen. I can't stand these people. I can't stand them. And you know, like, it's not even like everyone on the left. You know, when I was on Tim Pool a couple of weeks ago, this is before all the terrorist attacks started really ramping up. Tim was pretty much spot on and talking about how evil the left is. And I was trying to hold out hope that they're not all evil. And Tim's like, you're wrong. I'm wrong. But those are the people that they're platforming. Those are the people that they're elevating, their voices. It's not surprising. Speaking about elevating their voices, you know, I am trying my very best to hold those who have censored so many of us on platforms like YouTube, on Google. We're trying to hold them accountable. I did an exclusive interview with the woman who's running antitrust right now, where she's talking about Gail Slater. She's talking about specifically the most recent settlement, how they're continuously going after Google to make sure that they are playing fair. But the House Judiciary Committee just came out and said that Google admits to censoring Americans under Joe Biden, promises to end bans on YouTube. Well, folks, so many Americans are really infuriated by this, and rightfully so, because if you are someone who is a journalist, breaking news, being truthful about the COVID pandemic, they nuked your page pretty quickly. You lost out thousands, even possibly millions of dollars because they targeted you. So we need to not just say, okay, thank you for giving us our pages back. Maybe you'll monetize us. Maybe you won't. But let me remind you, we talked about it today. We broke the news today. You know, we started the Alex Jones live YouTube account. That's gone. I think we got to like 12,000 followers, I think was the last count. It's gone. Again, not surprising. Not surprising. They'll tell all these politicians that they're against censorship now. All of a sudden, they're all reformed. But the Alex Jones live YouTube page apparently gets nuked within a couple of hours. Why is that? Because you're trying to spread truth. The truth we don't want Americans to see. And so because of that, we're going to nuke your page. Chris Pavlovski, the Rumble CEO, was really one of the very few to give networks like InfoWars, My Show, a platform, because everyone was censoring us. YouTube literally suppresses me every time I put a video up. Maybe I'll get like 50 views if I'm lucky. But thankfully, Rumble has been the platform for us, and we're very, very thankful for that. Folks, I want to remind you, we're only able to stay in this fight when you head on over to the AlexJonesStore.com and support us. Head on over there right now because we have the limited time fall super sale going on right now. That means 70% off the Atomic Defense when you purchase methylene blue. Head on over there right now. We've got so many items right now on sale, and we're able to stay in this fight when you support us over at the AlexJonesStore.com. Head on over there right now. All right, we got a jam-packed program heading your way. We've even got a guest coming in studio in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the American Journal. I can't believe it's literally flying by. We're getting ready to kick off the third hour in just a few moments. Thank you all for being here. You know, crazy news cycle, a lot we're digging into. And again, I don't even know how 2 hours just flew by, but we're excited that you're here. We're going to have an incredible lineup of guests coming your way. Obviously, this is a very fluid show. So we did have Graham Allen. Graham Allen will be coming on later next week. So we'll be excited to have him on here. Then Douglas Mackey as well. But we have two incredible guests coming on, and I feel like I have to give you these updates because we talked about it in the open of the show. Michael Howell is going to be joining the show in just a few moments. He's the president of the Oversight Project. The Oversight Project is the group that those in the establishment really hate. Those who aren't doing their job, they really hate them too, because they consistently go out there and call them out. And so having him on today's program is going to be great. And he's going to join us in just a couple of minutes because he is fearless. He goes out there, he calls out the nonsense, and he speaks the truth. So he's been doing a lot of exposing. And so there's a couple of things we're going to dive into with him. He's been warning about how Democrats are literally lighting the fire when it comes to these ICE agents and the violence that's being encouraged against them. So we'll have that for you. We'll also be joined by Aaron Wright. Now, if you're not familiar with the state of Texas, Aaron is running here in Texas for the Attorney General slot. He's competing with Chip Roy for that position. The difference, though, is Aaron is not a career politician, which we like. We also like the fact that he is very, very brave. He speaks out on issues that we need him to speak out on, and he was doing it for no political gain at all, which is also really important. So he's joining us in studio today. A lot we're going to go through with him. Also, keep in mind, under Pam Bondi, he was actually at the DOJ just a couple of months ago. So he was at the DOJ. He's seen a lot of this. So I'm going to ask him about all the lawfare stuff. We're also going to ask him about James Comey. We're also going to ask him about Tish James because he's an attorney and he was over there. And so he's got the insight that we all need to hear about. So he'll be joining us in studio to discuss that in just a few moments, which we, of course, look forward to. But folks, a lot happening, and I want to make sure we dive into all of it today. We're going to bring you an update in a little bit as well about the Charlie Kirk shooter. There's more information about the trans lover. I can't even say that with a straight face. We're going to bring more about the trans lover details in the next hour. We're also going to be talking about specifically about how Luigi Maggioni is now saying that President Trump has violated his rights to a fair trial. Yes. Yeah, he says that because President Trump weighing in, obviously, because it was obviously a high-profile case, and he's claiming that he has had his rights trampled upon. Interesting. He's claiming because President Trump decided to weigh in publicly that he can't get a fair trial in this country. Wait until he hears what happens to J6ers, right? When the Biden administration went out there and demonized all of them. When House Democrats decided to have a fraudulent committee with a theatrical opening day, which they included evidence that would never make its way into a courtroom because guess what? It was factually incorrect. They even showed a fake gun and tried to say that the Oath Keepers brought a gun. No guns were brought to the Capitol that day from the Oath Keepers, but it didn't matter. They don't know the difference between a real gun and a fake gun, but they do know how to lie. And that's exactly what they did to the American people. So, you know, Luigi's over here saying, I want a fair trial. You're lucky. You'll get a fair trial. You'll get your fair trial. But you won't get special treatment. This is what we need to do against these lefties, man. We really need to go after them. I'm so infuriated with how they have been able to just go around our country, killing whoever they want because they politically disagree with them. No emotion, no care at all. And now you want to talk about getting a free trial? A fair trial? The guy you allegedly shot in the back of the head, he probably wanted a trial. But you decided to be the executor, allegedly. So a lot underway as we head into the next portion of our show, the third hour. It's going to be the biggest hour yet. So do not go anywhere. I've got tons of things to unpack. While you wait, though, make sure you head on over to thealexjonesstore.com and look around because there's plenty of items that are now being made available for the public, especially if you're a VIP member. The creatine, you're going to want to try that out. So head on over there right now and indulge a little bit. Thealexjonesstore.com. We'll be right back.
with your host, Brianna Morello. Watch it live right now at band.video.
Welcome back to the third hour of American Journal. We're very excited that you are all joining us. This show's just flying by. There are so many things in the headlines right now that we're breaking down for you, but we want to make sure you see everything that the mainstream media isn't going to tell you about. And so we've been doing just that, catching you up on all the important things you need to know about. But it's really important that we call out the violence from those on the left, because the mainstream media will tell you, oh, it happens on both sides. But it doesn't. It doesn't. The reality of it is there's been several terrorist attacks carried out throughout this country, and there's one common theme in all of this. And that's, well, they're all lefties. The reality is something they're trying to avoid, but people like Michael Howell have been very much on the ball with it and have been screaming about how the left is demonizing ICE agents for quite some time. And we've got the proof in our next soundbite. Take a listen.
The violence is getting out of control, and it is fueled by the demagoguery of politicians. Whether it is one of your members telling Axios that there needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public, another saying civility isn't working and to prepare for violence, or even a member of this committee being arrested for forcibly impeding and interfering with federal officials, this escalation deserves condemnation. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. Assaults against ICE officers are up over 830%, and that's a lowball estimate.
Mike Howell has been sounding the alarm on all of this, and he joins us now. He's the president of the Oversight Project, and he's been trying to warn everyone, well, that your rhetoric on the left, it is what is really fueling these terrorists. And unfortunately, we know that to be very, very true. Thanks for joining us today, Mike. I'm excited you're here because, you know, we're trying to sift through all the information, and there's so many, sadly, so many left-wing terrorist attacks happening all across the country. And it seems like they're trying to carry out these attacks because it carries out their message. We saw what happened yesterday in Dallas, where the ICE facility was shot at, and the individual who later committed suicide appears to be, based on every evidence we've seen thus far, appears to be anti-ICE, as what's written on the bullet casings. And the left continues to ignore it and pretend like this isn't their own terrorists. But there's this continuous factor in all of this. So again, why are they pretending like we don't have the facts sitting right in front of us?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think they can just power through it. They still have control of like most legacy media in this country. They still have enough people who are radicalized there and are, you know, not interested in the truth whatsoever. And still a large segment of their, you know, voting base and their supporter base that probably likes these terror attacks and doesn't mind seeing them, and will explain them as things that are justified because the, you know, everyday normal Americans are just that bad. And so I think that's what we're seeing right now. The politicians know exactly what they're doing. So do the megaphones like Jimmy Kimmel and others. They're engaged in stochastic terrorism. They're basically demonizing, dehumanizing, radicalizing, and day over day. And this has been going on for a decade now. Knowing that a crazy population, you know, which is really over proportionally on psychological medicines, it has a lot of other defects, you know, lack of family supports. In fact, in many ways, they disavow fundamental family or biological realities. So it's a population that is prone to violence, and they're sending them messaging to activate that violence over and over again. And that's here to stay until the federal government and state governments stop being so woke and politically correct and take it seriously.
Yeah. And Mike, I remember back in the Biden regime years, they were coming out and they were saying that white supremacy and, you know, those radical right wingers were the real threat to the homeland. And they continue to push this narrative. And I reached out to DHS and asked them, because they kept saying, oh, we're seeing it on the rise. I asked them for their numbers. I asked them to crunch down their numbers for me so I could get a look at the statistics myself. And they didn't have any numbers. They came up with these scenarios that they deemed to be related to white supremacy or right-wing beliefs. And that's what they sent me instead. So they never had the numbers to back up their argument. But, you know, we continue to say, and this is what I wanted to get at, because I know you specifically are telling the FBI that you guys need to start gathering this information. We need to learn more about this. Specifically, you're looking to see, I believe it was the, let's see, the transgender ideology-inspired violence and extremism. That's the type of information we need to begin gathering right now. So tell us a little bit about what you're looking for the FBI to start doing here.
Yeah, so the FBI has the purview to designate things as domestic violence, violent extremist groups, which then, gets you into working out of a domestic terrorism framework. Like, it's important to remember there is a federal definition of domestic terrorism, but there's not a corresponding criminal charge. So what happens is the FBI basically designates things as that under the domestic violent extremism framework, or DVE, which then opens up a bunch of tools, right? It basically allows for prioritization of resources, cleaner data collection, because when you name something, you share that info with state and local and federal partners, you have it cabined. So in the instance when you were asking DHS those questions, they probably did have the number, but they wouldn't give it to you because it was so low. But here we would have a clean number of events, associations, and people under investigation for adopting this domestic terrorism ideology. And it keeps going down the list. It opens up different legal avenues. You can do enhanced investigative techniques. You can get into the Joint Terrorism Task Force, kind of proliferate it throughout the government, get other resources. You can disrupt financial networks, working with the Department of Treasury and FinCEN. So it's basically a way for the FBI to say and identify something as domestic terrorism. Now, real quick, what is domestic terrorism? It is violence or other criminal acts meant to further, politics, ideology, coerce government, intimidate citizens, etc. That is squarely what we're seeing out of what we're calling transgender ideology-inspired violence and extremism, or TIV. So TIVs adopt the view that to oppose transgender ideology is a form of violence. If you don't affirm or celebrate somebody's self-mutilation, then you're increasing their potential for self-harm, suicide, or other negative violent effects. That's why politicians say Republicans are trying to kill transgender people, which couldn't be further from the truth. But what they're doing when they say that is they're putting in these people's mind, these people who have serious problems' mind, that, hey, if they're trying to kill us, and the politicians are telling you that, the politicians that I like, then what is the next logical step if someone's trying to kill you? It's to kill them first. And so that's why we have this growing sick segment that has adopted this ideology that naturally, logically, and in their minds morally leads to taking steps towards violence and domestic terrorism acts. That's why they shoot up Christian schools with children in them, to intimidate and to punish those who oppose their ideology. It's why someone connected in and who embraced TIV ideology and Charlie Kirk's assassin, and all the facts indicate that was a major part of it, that he couldn't reason with such evil, went and conducted a domestic terrorism attack. That's what that was against Charlie Kirk. It was an assassination, which is a form of domestic terrorism, a political assassination in broad daylight in public to scare people. That's what we're dealing with right now. And the FBI is too politically correct at this moment to say it for what it is. And until they, get the guts, and yes, guts, and get over that threshold of political correctness and actually focus in on this threat, we're going to see more of it.
Yeah. And I think that's very likely going to happen. I feel like we're covering a story every week now at this point, and it's all being linked to the same group of people. And although, the FBI likes to kind of tap dance around everything. When I was asking individuals as to why we can't directly call these things out, when all of us were being swatted, conservative influencers and journalists were being swatted just a couple of months ago, Kash Patel put out a statement, and he actually didn't even mention the fact that the consistent theme here is that conservatives are the ones who are being attacked. And everyone's telling me, everyone within the FBI was telling me, the reason why he won't directly say that is because our adversaries all around the world want to stir up a civil war. And so that's the reason why they're constantly attacking one side, is how they've kind of deemed it. And to me, it just doesn't seem to be, it seems to be a little accurate, but it doesn't mean that we should just sit here and not pretend like what's going on is actually going on. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't sit here and say, hey, this violence coming out from one side, because the left's not even trying to back down. They're not trying to change their verbiage, their words that they're pouring out there every single day. And they're continuing to stir the pot. President Trump just recently designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, but through executive order. Now, Mike, I want to hear your take on it, because I know you constantly are calling these people out, but Congress has had this sitting on their desk for quite some time. Marjorie Taylor Greene pushed forward legislation in the first term to create this designation. That didn't really go anywhere. And now, as soon as President Trump came back into the White House for his second term back in January, she brought this legislation forward again. But guess what? They haven't really advanced this at all. What are your thoughts on the fact that we have to just wait for an executive order to get things done, because Congress won't do anything on this issue?
Yeah, Congress is fundamentally broken, for a lot of different reasons. I mean, the constitutional authority of Congress is atrophied to near nothing. It is basically just a theatrical display of, things that should look like a functioning constitutional republic, but it's turned into like one long, really bad real world, season reality television show. It doesn't do anything. And then even when we have the power to control it, we need to understand that the Republican Party that is there, both in the Senate and the House, is not a cohesive ideological or political unit whatsoever. It's just a vessel for lobbyists and special interests to flow through, with some folks who actually adopt, the things that they sell in the campaign trail to the base. And so, Marjorie Taylor Greene is absolutely right with her legislation, but what she doesn't have is a political party that would support her or embrace what she's doing. No, they're there for tax cuts and special interest giveaways, and then campaign speeches about issues that the MAGA base cares about. I've stopped paying attention to Congress long ago, only to really get engaged to point out when they're not doing things that I know that they could be able to do. But here's the good news. That was a lot of bad news, but everyone knows that. So it wasn't really news, it was just bad. Is that the executive branch we have, President Trump doesn't need new legislation to take care of this. What he needs is a federal government with the guts to do it. And the authorities are on the books. Don't ask me, ask anyone who was under the purview of any of the January 6th investigations. The only difference here is we actually have real domestic terrorism events. We have people being assassinated. We have churches being shot up. We have children dying. We have continued cells operating. We're seeing the chats out of Discord and whatnot. It is like everything that they thought the January 6th event was, but actually true, and by a degree of 1,000 times over, that's happening all across America every single day. And so the question is only one of political will at the administration level. And the problem with the FBI is it's still an unreformed woke bureaucracy. They embrace the transgender sickness and infection probably more than any other federal law enforcement agency. I mean, they're posting, celebrating it on, social media all the time. They have people who came up through these ranks. If Director Patel wanted them to go out and enforce this, I'm sure you'd have, disunity in the ranks. And I think what that person you said told you, the reason they're not doing what they're not doing is just, I've never heard that in my life. It's completely false. And to me, that would mean the feds are admitting that our opponents have won. They've allowed us to not even deal with domestic terrorism framework in our own country. We should all just go home then if that's the case. So I'm just calling that BS, and let's move on from it. But Director Patel, he's come under a lot of fire. Now he has a redemption arc. We'll see if he does it. Doesn't look like he will do it. But we know the solution, which is question political will.
Yeah, well, that's the problem here, because I'm constantly asking, well, what personnel in the FBI are being fired? What's going on with these people? The people who were aggressively working hard against the lawfare, against President Trump to bring lawfare against him and members of his administration and his allies. And you're not really hearing much. It's really leaks at this point, or these individuals, if they're willingly speaking to the media, you'll hear about it from there. But the FBI is pretty much not telling you exactly who the key players are and where they're going. And so that's what's really infuriating about this, too, because I want to believe that the FBI director understands that a lot of these individuals were intentionally promoted within the agency so that they'd be in these positions of power. But we're not hearing about the purging of them. These people need to be removed from the agency. And I know, and I'll ask you for an update on this, but we just recently heard from Senator Chuck Grassley's office in regards to how groups like Turning Point USA and other groups and other close Trump allies, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who we had on the show earlier this week, and other attorneys like Jeff Clark, how they were all victims of Arctic frost and how the FBI was utilized to go after all of them. But it looks like one of the key players, you guys are saying, is now running the FBI Dallas field office, Joseph Rothrock. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's very interesting.
Yeah. Earlier this year, when we're tracking, we were hoping that Director Patel would do what kind of he was saying he would do when he came into the FBI and actually clear house, turn Hoover into, a museum in the headquarters and slim down the agency and get rid of bad actors. And that didn't happen, right? But we were trying to make that happen. And so we're pointing out to people that we go, what's going on here? And one of those individuals, Joseph Rothrock, who's now in charge of the FBI field office down there, so he's involved in the ICE attack, he played a central role in overseeing all of Arctic frost, one of the biggest examples that Grassley is most upset about. And that's like the targeting of Trump and conservative partner organizations that was used to form the basis for basically like Jack Smith to go out, the intel gathering apparatus for Jack Smith. So like a central note of the worst thing that happened, and the person who oversaw it was Rothrock, who was in Washington, D.C. at headquarters, the one on top of that pyramid that had Arctic frost in it. And for those who aren't familiar with Arctic frost, this is one of the biggest examples of the weaponization that people are most upset about. I know it's hard to keep track of the names of the agents or the names of the investigations, but just real quick, do you know what Arctic frost is? It's a type of orange. They named a case after a type of orange. Why? To mock Trump. That's how far gone these people were. They had no shame in this. And so I don't trust the FBI. It's so a woke organization. And there's still so much reform to be done. I hope Director Patel, Deputy Director Bongino, and now Bailey get back to the task of reforming it. But we're going to turn over potentially, if we don't win some more elections, a more powerful beast back to the people who want to harm this country than like they left for us. And that to me is terrifying.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. This was the time to make a move and to make these serious changes that they promised us they were going to make. And if we don't do it now, it's just never going to happen. And that's kind of where I am at all of this. Mike, thank you for joining the show today. You're doing incredible work over at the Oversight Project, so we greatly appreciate all that you do. Thank you for joining us and helping us understand all of this. You know, you're one of the very few brave people who, regardless of the administration, isn't afraid to call out this nonsense. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Brave or dumb, I don't know yet, but we'll keep doing it.
We're still trying to figure it out, too. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
We're still trying to figure that one out too, folks. So keep that in mind. All right. So like I told you earlier in the show, you know, the Luigi Maggioni case. Okay. So he's out there right now and he's really upset because he's saying that the federal government should have to be penalized a little bit in regards to his case because President Trump came out and spoke about his trial. Now they're saying that this is going to obviously taint the jury pool. But again, tough luck, kid. I mean, I know what to tell you. We sat here and had Joe Biden, when he's occupying the White House, go out there and taint the jury pools for J6 defendants. We saw it with the J6 committee, putting out fake evidence, pretending like things that would never make their way into a criminal courtroom, and they broadcasted it for the entire world. And they strategically actually had the opening of those hearings happen right before the Oath Keepers were about to start their criminal trial. So it sucks, doesn't it? Listen, the reality is he's going to get his fair trial. He's going to get his fair trial. But you can't sit there and say that the President of the United States can't talk about your case. These new legal documents were obtained by TMZ, by Luigi's legal team, saying comments made by President Trump and several other members of his administration have pretty much just failed him in regards to getting a fair trial, saying that the recent murder of Charlie Kirk has only increased the rhetoric that's being used against him. So again, they're trying to say he's not going to get a fair trial. I mean, I understand why his attorneys would make that argument, but the reality is you're going to get your fair trial. He'd get a much fairer trial than any conservative would ever get in this country. And I'm sure if he's found guilty, that the individual who was shot in the back of the head, the United Healthcare CEO, sure, he would have loved to have a trial. But someone decided to skip the trial and go straight to the execution. And although he's claiming innocence, it's worth noting. It's worth noting. Folks, I want to continue on with another story, another update. Charlie Kirk, as many of you guys know, the assassin, is in prison right now, in jail. The suspected shooter, according to several reports, had a transgender lover. In 2020, was a gifted pianist, I should say. The New York Post kind of doing a deep dive into the individual who is accused of being his lover, saying that he was very gifted. His former teachers are absolutely baffled. And there's also some family issues, it appears to be. Now, again, these are just reports coming out. I just find it to be very, very interesting that this is what's going on right now, that these are the people who we're doing deep dives into, going through this man's background, his lover's background, and trying to figure out more information about them. I mean, these people are weirdos, right? Like, if all the allegations are true, the furry thing, weird. Obviously, the transgender thing, super weird. But again, it's the consistency. It's the consistency. And I actually just got a push alert right now from a report saying that Fox News is now saying that in regards to the individual who shot up the ICE facility yesterday, that he was searching on his devices, the Charlie Kirk assassination, watching those videos, was learning from the previous killings by far left terrorists, even searching personnel information on people like FBI Director Kash Patel. That's the latest coming out from that. So again, the mainstream media is going to tell you not politically motivated. None of this is politically motivated. But the evidence, the searches, the terms that are being written on these casings tell you a completely different story. Only look here. Don't think for yourself. Look at what we're feeding you. That's what the mainstream media wants you to do. They're hoping you're just as stupid as they are. I mean, I sat here and watched after the show. We went back and we watched how the mainstream media was covering all of this. They wanted you to just hold off, reserve your judgment. This could be a MAGA supporter. Yeah, those cases, no, could be MAGA. And it looks like it's being written in nail polish. But again, look the other way. You know, there's a very interesting report that came out from NBC. They're claiming it to be exclusive. We've been talking about it for a very long time now, so I don't even think I'd tell them that this isn't a real exclusive. But they're saying that the federal government and local state officials in Ohio have been warning about Discord and how Discord is being utilized by American youth currently to be obviously radicalized. Now, folks, we've been talking about it. I outlined for you earlier in the show all of the terrorist attacks that have happened on the homelands and its linkage towards Discord. Now, again, I keep reaching out to Discord to give them a fair shake at everything. But they're not talking, probably because they fear what's coming next. Has the platform ignored these tips that were coming in? We don't know. We don't know, but there's a consistency here, and that's Discord being utilized prior to all of these terrorist attacks that are taking place all across our country. Now, again, they're claiming the last time they spoke out on the issue, they said that the suspect involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, allegedly, well, that individual didn't put anything up prior regarding his plans to go after Charlie Kirk. Now, specifically, I'm asking them. I mean, I'm reaching out, I'm calling, I'm emailing, sent them an email just the other day to follow up. Again, I'm not hearing anything from them. But the FBI is putting out information. I want to know, is it authentic what they're putting out? Because I'm not seeing timestamps on it. And I give them the floor to dispute whatever they want to dispute. But they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to dispute anything. Folks, you got to head on over right now to the AlexJonesStore.com. We have the limited time fall super sale going on right now. That means it's 70% off the Atomic Defense when you purchase Methylene Blue. You got to head on over there right now. There are so many incredible items you could save on. I do the blue tablets. That's what I do. I gotta tell you, it definitely helps, definitely wakes you up, it definitely gives you the boost that you need. So head on over to the AlexJonesStore.com right now. Support us by supporting the shop, the AlexJonesStore.com. All right, we'll be joined in just a few moments by Aaron Wright. In just a few moments, he'll be here to break down the very latest on the Lawfare. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to The American Journal with your host, Brianna Morello. Watch it live right now at band.video.
Welcome back to The American Journal. I am Brianna Morello. We're very excited that you guys are all here and with us today. All right, we've got a lot that we've been sifting through all day, but we have been on the ball when it comes to this MSNBC report that claims that the former FBI Director James Comey is apparently going to be indicted in the next upcoming days. Now, folks, again, it's MSNBC. I hate citing the mainstream media when it comes to these reports, but they're claiming to have 3 sources close to the issue. And, you know, we heard Alex Jones. He broke it down for you. He told you that there's multiple grand juries going on all around the country. I believe I heard him say Virginia as well. So this does hold a lot of truth, it looks like. Again, the statute of limitation appears to be coming about very, very soon. We're told if they don't file these charges by Tuesday that they could have that type of legal issue on that front. But we're told that this is in regards to the lies that James Comey allegedly told Congress. Now, thankfully, we have literally an archive of the lies that he's been telling over the years. I know that we've been reporting it. I've been playing a bunch of clips all day. But we've got another fascinating one that he told relatively recently. James Comey lying on not spying on the Trump campaign. Let's take a listen.
It's important that every last person who entered that Capitol be found and charged. They need to feel the force of the rule of law. They need to feel the American people's will to make sure that we're a country that doesn't accept attacks on our democracy. I know my colleagues at the FBI are are honored and excited to do this work and will do it 24 hours a day until they find every one of them. We live in extraordinary times where a president and his enablers have tried to motivate people to violence.
Do you stand by your House testimony of March 20th that there was no surveillance of the Trump campaign that you're aware of?
Correct.
You would know about it if they were, is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
He would know about it. Joining me now to discuss is one of the incredible candidates running for Texas AG right now. Aaron Reitz joins the program today. We are honored to have him here. Aaron, for our audience, not only are you running for Texas AG, but you also formerly worked over at the DOJ under Pam Bondi. So you've got a lot of background in all of this. You're an incredible attorney. So we're excited to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're talking about James Comey because it looks like the reports are accurate. He is about to be indicted, potentially on lying to Congress. What are your thoughts on all of this and just a kind of overall view on this MSNBC report?
Yeah, look, what I could say about James Comey is we've all known that James Comey is both a leaker and a liar. This is a guy who has been exposed as the very sort of hub of the hub and spoke conspiracy against the president of the United States that's been going on really since 2015, 2016 during the Russia collusion hoax. So James Comey has been at the center of this. He's been trying to avoid accountability for his role in all of this. Thankfully, we all know just a couple of months ago, as you guys reported, where Tulsi Gabbard came out with this document dump that showed that this was not just a handful of embedded bureaucrats that were trying to take out the president or stir up the Russia collusion hoax against President Trump, but really it was a coordinated hit job with President Obama being directly involved and James Comey being involved. What the clip that you just showed shows the lie that was done. You can't make false statements to the United States Congress. That's called perjury. And on September 30th, that 5-year statute of limitations is going to run. And my opinion is, being from the outside, but a careful observer of this over the years, is I think that there's enough to get a grand jury indictment on this. I think it's the just thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. Justice ought to be done here. And James Comey, I trust, is going to be held accountable.
When it comes to the charges that are potentially going to be filed against him, you know, it sounds like lying to Congress might be the lighter side of all of this. Are there any potential charges that you would think might be able to stick? I know we're up on time over here.
You know, look, I think that probably given the statute of limitations pressure, I think it's going to be perjury, lying to Congress, making false statements to Congress is going to be sort of the hook to get Comey. But look, the sentences for perjury go pretty high, and so I don't think, even if that's the only thing that he's indicted for, I think justice can still be done. And then once we start pulling at that thread, I think that the entire conspiracy against the president, the Russia collusion hoax, of which James Comey was at the center of, I think that whole thing is going to come unraveled. So even if that's the, quote, only thing that a grand jury indicts and then later on a judge and a jury convict him for is perjury, I'd be happy to see that, because some justice is better than no justice. And so I like where we're going with this.
Yeah, and you know, we were just talking about a couple of months ago, there was the 8647 post that was on his Instagram page. And I don't think people realize the timeline, but his book came out shortly after that.
Right.
So it was like kind of like a free PR push for him at the president's expense. Do you think the DOJ is going to go anywhere on that?
I hope that they do. Look, I think that the hook is going to be perjury. And I think that then what's going to come unraveled as the case then gets prosecuted and it goes through the trial is there's going to be all kinds of new data points, new facts that contribute to building the factual and the legal picture about James Comey's longstanding enforcement to not only undermine the president, to spread lies about the president, to leak classified information about the president, and then in his post-executive branch era to really incite not only hatred, but in the case of the 8647 post, incite violence against the president, of which now we're living in a political environment in which political violence is coming from one direction, and they too, James Comey and his acolytes, are in fact trying to 86 the 47th president of the United States.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for all of us kind of wrap our minds around all of this, because he was able to get away with this, it seems like. And again, it's a free promo for his book. He's sitting there reading his book. This needs to be taken seriously, and we hope that's the case. I want to talk about Tish James, because Letitia James, the New York AG, had no problem putting all of her forces into going after President Trump when he was trying to campaign. She wanted to stop him from campaigning. She attempted to stop him from being able to excel and to become the next president of the United States. I mean, that was her ultimate goal in all of this.
Totally.
So now we're sitting back and we're watching as this all unravels. Now it seems like the fraud that she was trying to accuse the president of was actually allegedly pointing at her. I mean, she is now being accused of mortgage fraud. There was just recently a turn over at the U.S. Attorney General's office, I believe, in Virginia. And now we're starting to hear these whispers that there might be indictments against Letitia James. Are you hearing anything on that front?
You know, I am watching just like you are. Sadly, you know, I was formerly the presidentially appointed Senate confirmed head of the Office of Legal Policy, in which I would have had, you know, a direct involvement in some of these things. Ethical rules bar me from being directly involved. But look, I'm as concerned as you are. But what's ironic about Letitia James, as is the case with many leftists in this country, is their political activities are really just projections of their own internal corruption, right? So Letitia James going after elected officials for mortgage fraud, it turns out she's a mortgage fraudster, right? And so I would encourage the DOJ to take it very seriously. I think the president is encouraging his Justice Department to take it very seriously. And so I'm optimistic there that justice will be done. But Letitia James is one of the worst blue state attorneys general in the country. And I sure hope that she's brought to justice.
I think it's really important that she's brought to justice. And, you know, I'm watching as the mainstream media is trying to go about covering all of this. And there was a post that was made over the weekend by President Trump on Truth Social, where it appears that he's being critical of the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And then moments later, he does, you know, kind of backtrack a little bit. And he says that she's a great Attorney General and congratulates her for that. But they're going to try, it looks like, to use that tweet, that post, that Truth Social post, to say that the president is manipulating the AG's office to go after his political opponents, which is laughable given what we had to witness for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But what would you recommend? I mean, what's the rebuttal for that? Because they're going to use all of this to spin the narrative and say that these people are innocent and that they're just being targeted because they're the opponents of the president.
Yeah, look, I think that one is best served by just ignoring the attacks from the left. They're going to be unhinged and make ridiculous arguments at every turn, and they are totally comfortable being utter hypocrites. When they have the levers of power, they'll weaponize it to the hilt, and when they're not in power, even the slightest gust of wind against them, they're going to accuse the right of engaging in sort of weaponization of justice. It's demonstrably not true, but I also want to be clear. Under the United States Constitution, it is the President of the United States who's the chief executive of the executive branch under Article 2. Okay, so it's not the left wants to lose their minds over saying, oh, President Trump is bullying the Justice Department. No, no, no. The president is in charge of the executive branch. The executive branch includes the Justice Department. Justice is often served by pursuing the spirit of impartiality. But if the president was elected on the grounds that the American people want to make right the injustices that he himself was a victim of for several years, that is totally lawful. And so for the president to say, hey, Attorney General Bondi, I would like you to use your legitimate statutory, constitutional, and common law powers to go after people to go after entities or individuals that the American people know are crooked, that is a completely valid exercise of power. And so I commend the president for drawing attention to these people who we all know are criminals. And the Justice Department, and I would have advised this too when I was the head of the Office of Legal Policy at DOJ, to shape investigatory and law enforcement and prosecutorial powers to try to find out where these bad actors, who are overwhelmingly on the left, the political left, have committed against the president and against the United States. So I think it's totally fine. Ignore the haters and the losers on the left that are going to complain and say this is weaponized lawfare. First of all, no, it's not. And second of all, to the extent they even believe that it is, they're getting just a small taste of their own medicine that they have been perpetrating against the American people and this president for decades.
I think it's really interesting when we talk about how these people have potentially what they've done over the last few years. Let's just talk about the prosecutors who have worked at the DOJ under Joe Biden. I mean, we know that they were weaponized and that they were used to go after his political enemies. We saw it with January 6ers. People weren't even there that day. Were getting prosecuted. Right. We covered trials. We were just talking about it today, but I think it's Jeffrey Nestler is one of the most recent individuals who we believe is stepping away from the DOJ office right now. But a lot of these prosecutors are just stepping away from their roles or being fired by the AG. Should there be more ramifications, though, for those who weaponize law and use it against the political opponents of whoever they're reporting to?
Yeah, I think as the case may be, sure, there should be more ramifications. Look, I love when I got to the Justice Department as the head of the Office of Legal Policy, Attorney General Bondi and I and the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche really spent those first 90 days earlier in the spring reshaping department policy to encourage what I like to call just self-deportations of deep staters and leftists that were at Main Justice and spread throughout the various U.S. attorneys' offices around the country. And so, look, we created an environment in the United States Justice Department that said, look, we are going to uphold the rule of law. We are going to advance a right understanding of justice. We're going to adhere to the Constitution. And we are ultimately serving the legal and the law and order agenda that the president ran on. If you don't like that, here's the door. And so, look, if you were just a deep state leftist with left-leaning sympathies, we invite you to leave. And by the way, that invitation, I think, still stands, enthusiastically so. If there are individuals who left and yet who were more nefarious actors while they were there, if they were active participants in weaponized justice or anti-conservative or anti-Republican justice that undermined the rule of law or violated, professional codes of ethics or standards at the Justice Department, then yes, I think that the DOJ should potentially stay on top of them to see if there aren't more ramifications than just the privilege of being able to leave DOJ peacefully and go get a high-paying big firm job.
Yeah, no, I think that should be the case, and we hope it is, because we have to purge these people out of these important roles. There needs to be consequences so others understand that you will be punished if you do all of this. Speaking about punishment, John Bolton obviously under investigation, and just yesterday came out that there were classified documents, according to reports and court documents, I should also cite as well, at his D.C. office. Now, a lot of that is deeply concerning because the documents that they claim that they found include details about weapons of mass destruction, as well as information regarding the UN, as well as U.S. communications strategy as well. So these are very alarming documents that he would have in his possession. But interesting enough, they say that this was found in his D.C. office. The write-up on it is clear as day. What is going on right now with John Bolton? Because I know this was an issue prior, right? When he was pushing out his book, there was a judge. I remember hearing about a judge who had actually reprimanded him because he was getting very close to leaking classified information, but he was like kind of teetering on this line. Now it looks like he may have had classified documents in his possession. If these were authorized for him to take home with him, which I don't know if that is the case, what's next for John Bolton?
Yeah. So look, I think, again, the sweet irony of those who go after the president is the fact that John Bolton is one of these guys who was screaming from the rooftops about the alleged illegalities of President Trump holding, allegedly classified documents and so forth. We know that that case went nowhere. However, John Bolton is accusing the president of violating the law, yet at the same exact time is retaining classified documents in potential violations of the Espionage Act. And so I think you hit the sort of the friction point is there's a distinction between whether you have authorization to retain certain documents or whether you don't have authorization. Now, the standards that would apply to the president of the United States who retains the discretion to either classify or declassify certain documents, that discretion is not retained by his political subordinates, including the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. And so he's not going to be able to hide behind his grotesquely large mustache here and pretend like he didn't do something wrong. It seems to me like this case stinks to high heaven here. And look, I think that federal authorities are going to get to the bottom of it. But again, the irony, coming after the president for allegedly illegally holding documents. We know that wasn't anything, but John Bolton, I think justice will be done here as well. So we're just now getting into the beginning of it. Now, those documents were seized back in August, but the fact that they were seized and the redacted contents of those documents has just now been reported just a few days ago. So we're really on the cutting edge of what's going to happen. But I hope, it seems to me, that John Bolton or a former National Security Advisor would not be allowed to retain these documents and thus would potentially be violating the Espionage Act. Therefore, is probably ripe for an indictment and a successful prosecution. I hope to see it.
Yeah, I hope to see it too. I mean, these people need to be held accountable for their actions. And I know the president's been calling it out for quite some time now, but, he didn't want to go after his political opponents. He did his very best not to, but they just, over the last 4 years, have proven that they need to be targeted, not because of things that they didn't do, but things that they did do, that there needs to be these penalties because they were so emboldened to go out there and to go after people they disagreed with or just people who they deemed as their political opponents, their political enemies. And speaking about that, Alex Jones has just recently released a letter from Ed Martin, who's a good friend of mine. He's a great...
Weaponizations are. Good friend, yeah.
He's doing an incredible job, like digging through all of this. It's a lot that he has to go through, but But he just recently sent over a letter to an attorney for a FBI special agent, William Alsberg. And ultimately, what we're trying to get to the bottom here is the FBI's role in going after InfoWars. Alex has been kind of sifting through a lot of the lawfare that was used against him and finding that there's linkage now between the FBI reaching out and kind of coordinating this one agent coordinating the Sandy Hook Elementary School attack that was launched on them through lawsuits. Ed Martin getting to the bottom of this and sending this letter over, asking for specific details. How would you kind of, for our audience, how confident are you that Ed Martin could get to the bottom of this?
Look, I have tremendous confidence in Ed Martin's abilities. He and I worked together very closely, both when he was the U.S. Attorney for the District of D.C. and then when he came over to the Justice Department and was tapped. He's wearing several hats. He's like the Marco Rubio of the Justice Department, where he's wearing a lot of hats. But I worked as the head of the Office of Legal Policy at DOJ most closely with him in his capacity as the weaponization czar. Yeah. And so Ed and I worked very closely together to try to unravel the decades-long weaponization of justice. And so, look, I have tremendous confidence in Ed Martin's effectiveness, his intelligence, his focus on the mission. I think he understands, as we like to say, what time it is. I think he knows what time it is. I think he knows the depths of the left-wing weaponization against conservatives and conservative outlets, conservative people, conservative families and organizations. And Ed, I have a lot of trust in. When a project gets assigned to Ed, I feel very good about where that case is going to go. And even in the cases where we aren't able to get a win, put a W up on the board, it's not because Ed Martin, it's not for lack of trying or ability. It's if Ed Martin says that something isn't able to go forward, there's something there. I trust Ed Martin, so I'm glad to hear that he's on the case.
Yeah, he's on the case, and he's looking for more information on this because it seems like, according to all the information, we've been able to get, that this was something that shouldn't have happened in the first place, and this was orchestrated by an individual. And so we're going to keep digging into this, but I'm really excited that Ed Martin's on the case.
Me too.
He's one of the very few people I trust in this world.
Me too.
So when Ed reaches out and when Ed starts doing the digging and sending letters, I take it very, very seriously.
Yes.
I wanted to shift gears a little bit because we're in Texas, and you're running for Texas AG. So let's keep things in Texas. Right. You just recently got endorsed by my favorite person, Ken Paxton, the current AG. Now, I say it all the time. Ken Paxton is a shark. Yeah. Ken Paxton is one of the very few who they were going after, and he continuously went out there and didn't back down and continued to expose all the corruption, to challenge the Biden regime. So getting his endorsement is a very big deal. What are some of the things that you like about Ken Paxton running the state of Texas, and what do you look forward to carrying on when you do become elected?
Yeah, look, I am running for Texas Attorney General. I left the Justice Department and launched back in mid-June. We've been running for a few months. We have an incredible momentum. We've got lots of great fundraising and huge endorsements, and most particularly just a couple weeks ago from Attorney General Paxton, who I had the privilege of serving as his deputy for 3 years. And during that time, that was during the Biden era, and he was sort of our head coach. I was the offensive coordinator. So he tasked me with leading the Texas v. Biden docket, which you can imagine was a very robust docket. I like to say during my 3 years there, I sued the 46th president 46 times with an 85% win rate. We had a great time doing it. And as Paxton said in his endorsement statement, he didn't mince any words. A lot of times you hear these endorsement statements where it's like, well, there's many good people in the race, and I think that Texas will be well served. No, Paxton was unequivocal. He said, in this otherwise crowded field, Aaron Reitz is the only qualified candidate to continue the fight. And so what I want to do is, look, Texans have been benefited. We've been blessed by having a shark who's kept his foot aggressively on the gas and handling this high horsepower vehicle to do justice, advance law and order in Texas, often when no other red states had the ability or the willingness to do it. Paxton stood alone, and he has transformed the Texas AG's office into a national office that becomes a beacon for law, order, justice, constitutional rights, and so forth. And so what I want to do is continue to press in on those major fights. And a lot of people say, well, Ken's already sort of at a 10 out of 10 hardcore. I say, yeah, we're going to turn it up to 11. So that's what we're going to do. And I think that what voters want, when I got nominated for my post at DOJ, President Trump back in December, he put out a statement when he nominated me. And he said, Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. That's exactly what Texas Republicans want as their next AG. It's what Texans deserve as their next AG. Somebody who served on active duty in the Marine Corps, someone who clerked on the Texas Supreme Court, someone who spent several years in private practice, Paxton's deputy, Cruz's chief, DOJ under Trump, Trump's true MAGA attorney. That's who we need. And I look forward, if Texans, if your viewers are listening right now and they like what Paxton's been doing, There's only one candidate in this race who even has the slightest clue, ability, or willingness to keep up that energetic fight for law and order in Texas.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because, you know, you announced that you were running for AG, and then just recently we had Chip Roy also throw his hat in this. And the difference here is this, right? I sit there, and I was a DeSantis supporter at one point, so I don't hold that against him. But I do hold the fact against him that when the mob comes for you, that he kind of took a knee. And I'm referring to the George Floyd case here, because I was not happy when I saw that he was posting these tweets about George Floyd is now with our Heavenly Father. This is a man who I think is absolutely egregious human being who was accused of pointing a gun at a pregnant woman's belly. This is something that we should not allow. We shouldn't have someone who is that weak. What were your thoughts when you learned that Chip Roy threw his hat into the race?
I love that Chip Roy is in this race because it provides such a tremendous, stark contrast for voters. Often in a Republican primary, you know this, you've been in politics for a while, where everybody runs towards this certain common denominator and it gets lost in the noise. But what you have right now is a very clear choice. It's Aaron Reitz versus Chip Roy. On the one hand, you have President Trump's true MAGA attorney versus a guy who's been a never-Trumper, anti-MAGA, anti-Trump guy from the beginning. You have somebody who, in December of 2020, along with Attorney General Paxton, filed Texas v. Pennsylvania to challenge the constitutionality of that election, the manner in which it was run in violation of the Electors Clause of the Constitution, versus somebody who was screaming red-faced through a baseball mask, siding with Mike Pence, saying that President Trump was engaging in impeachable conduct and hanging out with his best friend Liz Cheney. And by the way, that animosity between Chip Roy and President Trump and the MAGA movement has not diminished. It's only increased over time. We know who Chip Roy is. Many people also call him Flip Roy because he just goes back and forth depending on how his mood is on the day. But Texans know that they cannot turn the keys of this mission essential office, the Texas Attorney General, over to somebody who is as egomaniacally, belligerently, and unstably anti-MAGA, anti-Trump, and anti-Paxton. What voters want, what voters deserve, is somebody who has been with the president, who's been hand-selected by the president to serve in the senior ranks of the Justice Department, who's been fighting alongside the MAGA agenda for years, and who's been endorsed by Attorney General Paxton. I like that contrast. And it's not difficult for folks to look at Reitz versus Roy and say, look, I'm going to rally around Reitz's MAGA, Trump, Paxton flag.
Yeah, and that's something we could all get behind. Aaron Reitz, thank you for jumping on with us today. Thank you for coming to the studio. It was great to have you in person. This was a great discussion. We're going to have you back on because there's so much to dive into, and you have such a great way of analyzing all the things regarding the lawfare that we're trying to push back against. So thank you for joining us, folks. I also want to remind our audience that if you are a VIP member right now, you got to head on over to the AlexJonesStore.com. If you're not a VIP member, become one, because the Ultimate Creatine Powder is now available. It is the launch for VIP only. So head on over to the AlexJonesStore.com right now. Alex is up next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back on Monday. Du is filling in for me, so we'll see you then.